Welcome back to the Rodcast, as we like to call it, a freak flag, feel good, fake it till you make it. Ric Flair, woo! 512 Football Friday edition of the Rodcast. We appreciate all you guys for joining us. Lots to get into on the show. We got to talk about the wintry snow globe of a football game that took place last night in the AFC North between the Steelers and the Browns. We'll get into that, of course, momentarily and review that. We'll also, of course, talk about Texas and Kentucky because of the hard work of my man Patrick Davis. We do have audio sound of Steve Sarkisian's Zoom availability earlier this week, at least yesterday. So we'll get to that and preview their matchup coming up this weekend versus the Kentucky Wildcats. We'll also get into some other NFL news, notes, and nuggets. We'll talk about the big games of this weekend, get into the Texans and the Cowboys a little bit as well coming up next hour in the show. There's also your usual favorites. We'll get to who said that, what the facts, what the stats. We got off the record. We got the topic for the big fat poll of the day. How about this? NIL once again wins the day. We'll talk about that coming up a little bit later on in the show too. There's some a recruiting story out there, huge recruiting story out there that has a lot of layers, and we'll talk about that too coming up. Also coming up later on in the show, we'll dive into this quarterback class. I want to talk about this rookie quarterback class a little bit and how special it is. Got some numbers to share with you guys, so we'll do that too. Before we do any of that, let's introduce you to the rest of the crew. He's one of the hardest working members of the ARN family. Got a hustler spirit, period. Not sure what he's paid, but pretty damn sure the man is underpaid. Ain't no 401k for this hustler, and he's a hustle man of many talents. It is our friend, co-host, and neighbor. It's Patrick Davis, y'all. What's going on, Patrick? How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good on a Friday morning. It's always good to be a Friday morning. Get ready. Mm-hmm. Texas basketball got the win last night. It was a little more stressful than it needed to be, but they got the big win last night. So they play again tonight. So that'll be fun to watch. And
back-to-backs?
It's a tournament, a little mini tournament.
Tournament going on. I got you.
Okay. Which meant that there was a chance we played Texas Tech tonight. But Texas Tech also lost in the last seconds of their game. Both games were really tight, and they lost. So Texas takes on St. Joseph's tonight, and Texas Tech will take on Syracuse in one of those. The Syracuse game, it's rough because it's a neutral site, but it's also in New York.
Oh, yeah, so it's home game.
So for Syracuse, it's a home game. So, it was – so the crowd was very heavily on Syracuse's side. And so it felt like a road game, even though it was a neutral court game for Texas. But you get to watch them again tonight, and hopefully they'll shoot a little bit better than they shot last night. They didn't play terribly. They shot not well last night. So.
Was that the big issue? Was that they didn't shoot well last night?
Yeah, that's the main issue. The defense is pretty good, but they couldn't shoot the ball, especially in the second half. They couldn't shoot the ball at all. So the offense slowed down, and then it was not great in the second half. Not great.
Still found a way to get the dub, though.
Found a way to get the W.
They're like you said, basically in a road environment.
In a road environment, you had the issue that happens a lot in college basketball now, which is the refs see the way the game is going, and then they just start calling it a different way in the second half. And it's not that it's one-sided either way. It's just they just call it differently, and then they switch back at the end of the game, and it helped Texas at the end of the game. It was still weird.
Hate it.
It's like just call it consistently. Just call it consistently. But they let them play a lot more in the second half, and so it got really physical there for a while. And then at the end of the game, they're like, maybe it's a little too physical, and then they started calling fouls again. Just weird. So it became a different game in the second half when it got a little bit more physical, and Texas just didn't respond well to it. Trey Johnson didn't necessarily respond well to it either. It was his worst shooting game. He still had 16 points, but still his worst shooting game.
Efficiency-wise.
They had to roll into zone. They played against the zone defense. They get up to like a 9-0 lead, and Syracuse comes back out with a zone. Actually played against it better than they had in the past. So there was a lot of positive signs in it, and then a few signs of stuff you got to work on. But you get the win early on. You go on. You don't have to play Texas Tech today, which is nice. Don't have to have that rivalry. In New York is a weird place to have that game too. You did it.
Seems like a weird place to have such a southern rivalry to have it on the East Coast like that.
So you'll be playing St. Joseph's tonight, but we can get into that later. We can get into a whole lot of football talk. With my co-host, he's a proud alumni of DBU. He's got more papers than Dunder Mifflin and watches more film than Siskel and Ebert. He is a new Rod father of Austin Sports Radio, Mr. Rod Babers.
Oh yeah, let's see the Trey Johnson took 18 shots. A lot of shots. What was he, 4 of 18? Something like that?
4 of 18. And yeah, he hit his free throws,
Yeah.
and you saw that clutch of him down the stretch.
Yeah.
Because he was the one, he got fouled a couple times and hit his free throws to pull away in the game. But yeah, he was, and I mean, really, it was, I'm not mad at Rodney Terry for really just giving him the ball at the end of the game. He needs to be the guy. He needs to be the scorer.
Get used to it.
Exactly. And you go, if you can do this now, if he's shooting that badly in March and you need a game to win, you got to find somewhere else to go. Yeah. But at this point, when you have a true freshman and you're able to say, let's put you in a high intensity environment where the crowd is cheering against you, where they are getting to bump you a little bit more, and we need you to feel how this is going to be because it is going to be more intense than this later in the season. So let's give you a little bit of a feel of this right now. I think it was a good experience for him to get this early in the season. So I'm not mad at Rodney because, Rodney Terry, too, has always kind of had this philosophy that November and a little bit in December is really kind of a figuring out of the team, experimenting with lineups and trying to put different guys in. So this is one where you can put that in, and if you lose, you still play tomorrow anyway. You just played the 6 o'clock game instead of the 8 o'clock game. But I think he more wanted to give him that experience and the time. He could have gone to Jordan Pope. He could have tried to go inside a little bit more, but I think he wanted to see him, and he did hit a couple shots there at the end too. So he just goes, I want you to see the ball go in on one of these and realize what you can do because we know what you're capable of doing. I'm not, it wasn't the best run offense. If you were watching it, you were not going to watch that game and think, wow, this offense is a well-oiled machine down the stretch, because it was ball stop and give the ball to Trey Johnson and go, which is not what you want to see. If this was January, I'd be much more upset about it.
Yeah.
But in November, I'm not as worried about it. But it is something they'll have to keep working on. This offense and figuring out a little bit more of a rhythm to it. Also good to see Tremont Mark get his first play of the season. That is really going to be the guy who's supposed to be your second best player. Hit some big threes to start off the game as well for him. He only played 19 minutes, but he's a guy that you'll see play more and more as the season gets on and he gets a little bit more into shape. He's been out with that ankle injury, so this is his first game of the season, but really good to see him come in and play some. But yeah, overall, it wasn't a bad game. It just, all of a sudden it started to spiral, and Eddie Lampkin, which is a guy we saw before with TCU in years past, he just started to get the ball, and they started to let him use his arm to push off because they started to let things slide a little bit more. And once he started going, then it was all downhill for Syracuse. And so it was, kind of get into him, and once he could create a little bit of space, he could work. Shedrick was trying to get up on him, but if he got on him, they would call it a foul, and if he or he get pushed off and he couldn't flop, or they call it a foul, or they wouldn't call the foul and let Lampkin just go over the top of him.
They kept changing up the way they were calling it anyway.
Well, they're just letting him play, and so those are just hard when you're playing a guy who's bigger than you. Texas is going to have those problems down the stretch. When you play guys that are physically bigger than you, it's difficult. And believe me, Texas wishes they had a guy that was bigger. They cost a lot of money now, and so
quarterbacks,
and they want to have the ball in their hands more. So it's harder to get some of those guys, but they were able to push back. The crowd was behind them. They fought back into it, but it was good to see Texas respond and still close out and get the win.
That's a positive. Yeah, you want to get those kind of games early in the season to get battle tested. Because of course you'd like to be one of the teams in the thick of it late in the season, and it's all about clutch time. So good stuff there. We'll talk about that again. I want to give Patrick some time later on to kind of break down the Texas win and the Texas team in general, what he's seen so far, just in a small sample size. So we'll get to that as well. Let's get to the Horn headlines first, and we'll come back. We'll discuss last night's game between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Browns. I don't know how it always works out, but even the football gods contributed this time. We gave you the stat yesterday that on the road, the Pittsburgh Steelers in Cleveland since 2018 were 1-4-1. Now 1-5-1. I don't know how these trends continue. They make no sense at all, but it happened. That game was actually a wild and crazy game. It didn't make a lot of sense, but we'll get to it and break it down. But first, let's get educated, updated, and informed with all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn headlines.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the NBA, the Spurs outscored the Jazz by 24 in the second half to get a 126-118 win last night. This is their second win without Wembanyama or Vassell in the lineup, both who they hope return Saturday when they face the Warriors. Tonight, the NBA Cup play resumes with the Rockets taking on the Trailblazers, and the Mavericks facing the Nuggets without Luka Doncic, who will miss at least a week with a wrist injury. In Major League Baseball, Shohei Ohtani was named the National League MVP, and Aaron Judge was named the American League MVP. Ohtani led the NL in homers, RBIs, and OPS while adding 59 stolen bases. This is Judge's second MVP and Ohtani's third. Both votes were unanimous. Texas men's basketball held on to beat Syracuse 70-66 after the Orangemen made a run down the stretch. Arthur Kaluma paced the team early and finished with 16 points and 10 rebounds, while Trey Johnson had his worst shooting night of the season, but still sunk key free throws down the stretch and finished with 16 as well. They now move on to the finals of the Legends Classic tonight, playing St. Joseph's, who knocked off Texas Tech in the final seconds to advance. Texas women's soccer also plays tonight, facing number 16 Michigan State in the round of 32 of the NCAA tournament. In college football, Texas faces Kentucky at home tomorrow at 2:30, looking for their 10th win of the season. While elsewhere, number 2 Ohio State takes on number 5 Indiana. Number 9 Ole Miss plays a surging Florida. Number 14 BYU goes against number 21 Arizona State. Number 6 Notre Dame tries to give number 19 Army their first loss. And number 15 Texas A&M heads on the road to play Auburn. In the NFL, the Browns upset the Steelers in the falling snow last night, 24-19. Nick Chubb had 2 touchdowns as Pittsburgh picked up their third loss of the season. Sunday, Cowboys take on the Commanders and Washington, and while the Texans face the Titans in Houston. That is your Horn Headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn Headlines. I appreciate those. Yeah, the Browns got the win over the Steelers. Jack said 3-8 Browns. I don't know how it happened. Well, the snow is a big part of it. But hell, the Pittsburgh Steelers are used to playing in crazy, wild conditions. I mean, it's the AFC North, but it was football in a snow globe. There is something beautiful about football in that kind of weather. I'm glad I never had to play in that kind of weather. Wouldn't want to play in that kind of weather. But it is something almost poetic about it. Football will make it, for some reason, it still makes sense in that kind of weather, that wintry mix. But the Browns, and I don't know how this is the case. The Browns have basically ended 2 5-game win streaks this season. Remember they the Browns snapped the Steelers 5-game win streak and the Ravens 5-game win streak this season. How? They only got like 3 wins. And man, I'm sorry, division games are just crazy. It's just the intimacy and the familiarity. They're just different. They're just, especially in a competitive division like the AFC North. That's crazy. Matter of fact, the 2024 Browns are the only team since the 1970 merger to be below 500 and snap 2 divisional opponents' 5-game win streaks in the same season. Yeah, it doesn't happen. You don't see stuff like that. The only other teams to do this, regardless of a record, were the 99 Bills, 92 Colts, and 91 Cowboys. That's regardless of the record. But they're the only team since 1970 to be below 500 and do it. I don't know how, they've done it twice. That's crazy. That's unbelievable. But anyway, we'll get to Jameis Winston, because that's my favorite part of, really what the story that the Browns have right now in the narrative is. I'm hoping that Jameis Winston is the next story of those quarterbacks who we had given up on and we thought we already knew what they were and what they had become. And, oh no, Jameis Winston is just a backup, and that's who he is, and that's what he is as a quarterback, and that's what he's going to be relegated to for the rest of his career. I'm hoping he has one of those reinventions, where he can revitalize his career and skill set. Maybe it's with the Browns, who knows? Just when they think he's a bridge quarterback, moving on from Deshaun, and then he ends up showing more than that. Like we've seen from Baker Mayfield's obviously been a big story like that. Geno Smith's another story. Like Sam Darnold may be the latest story like that. We've seen those stories, and they're kind of cool in their own regard. But Jameis Winston, just for the sound bites, and just for the post game and the pre-game, clips of audio and interviews, I don't know if there's anybody that is unintentionally more funny or unintentionally funnier than Jameis Winston, man. He's like I think he's a funny, and I know he's not. I don't think he's always trying to be funny. I just think he is funny. I just think he is hilarious. He is kind of a border, and he's so devoted to his faith. So he's almost kind of a televangelist aspect to him once he gets rolling, because he gets really excited about scripture. So this is a couple of clips. We got a couple of these, but they're just from last night. This is a couple of clips from last night. And so here we get the pregame one first with the pregame interview. I believe he's with Kaylee Hartong in the pregame interview. Is this, I believe that's it, but I'm not totally sure. But here's him in the pregame talking about the bad weather that's expected and his start versus the Steelers.
You have said you don't become a Brown until you beat the Steelers. What will it take tonight?
The horse is prepared for battle, but victory comes from the Lord. So I'm dependent on the Lord.
Is that the message to the team?
Day by day, one play at a time. That's the message.
Weather conditions tonight. We're expecting winds up to 15 miles per hour in a wintry mix. How will that impact your ability to throw the ball?
I am so happy and grateful that the Lord has blessed me to play in some snow, to be in true football weather in Cleveland, Ohio, at Huntington Bank Field today to give him the glory. It's a beautiful day.
Sure feels like you're playing in the AFC North.
It is. It's magical. Thank you.
Okay, so here's him in the post game describing the wind and the way things happened and the snowstorm that all transpired in the game last night.
It really was like it was a whole paradigm shift. Like, we were playing so well offensively, and then bang, bang, back-to-back drives with turnovers. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, this is really an NFL film moment. The snow starts pouring down. It starts getting like I felt like my feet started getting heavy because I'm squishing through the snow. And man, it was so good, and it was so great to end up in that win.
I just want more of Jameis Winston in pregame and postgame interviews. That's all. I'm rooting for Jameis Winston, actually, to end up being either the bridge quarterback for them, or maybe ends up being somebody else's stopgap quarterback. Hey, who knows? I mean, Jameis Winston's always had a high ceiling. We know that. It's just that I always call him kind of an idiot savant. He can have a play where he makes a play that is on caliber with the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and you would say that's a play that only the elite quarterbacks in the NFL can make. And he'd also have a play on the same series, even maybe, that that's stupefying, and you are shocked that any NFL quarterback, second, third string, would ever make that kind of decision to throw. He can do that on the same drive. But man, more Jameis Winston. More Jameis Winston if we could get it. He's fantastic. Okay.
I feel like there's a cap to it. I feel like if you just pace out Jameis Winston in like 2-minute sound bites for the rest of the season, then it'll be perfect. Don't ever let him talk for 10 minutes straight. Never.
Oh yeah, I don't want to hear the whole press conference.
No. 2 minutes at a time. I feel like is perfect Jameis Winston length.
Agreed. Yeah. No, I'm with you. I want to hear it for a long time, but and you're right. Maybe over the course of a season, I'll probably get annoyed by it. But I don't know. I love Jay because I think he gets so animated.
Yes,
when he's just about the most random things.
If we could get him and Jamal Williams on the same team at a point.
Oh yeah, is the running back?
Yes.
Yeah.
The Lions and his
yes. It started crying almost.
Yeah, if those two could be together, I feel like it would be just great.
Oh, man. Yeah, no, you're right. Like I said, I almost feel like there's a televangelist kind of feel sometimes when Jay, and who knows, he may want to be like a preacher or a pastor or something like that when he gets done. All right, there you go. So we more Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston actually ended up playing a really good game. Actually, I mean, it was typical Jameis Winston. I mean, it was high risk, high reward. It was kind of boom and bust. But in that kind of weather, I mean, all the game plans are thrown out. There's no, in terms of execution and all that kind of stuff, you really can't count on much of that. It is, that's football, and that's organized chaos, right? That's football in the most chaotic atmosphere you probably can get. So you just need guys to go out there and make plays, and hopefully luck and the ball kind of falls your way. But I would say Mike Tomlin, and I like Mike Tomlin, you guys know I do. He did not help his team last night. There were some very questionable decisions by Mike Tomlin last night. When the Browns were facing that 4th and 1 with just 2 minutes remaining, Steelers were leading. Remember 19-18, right before they go in for the game. They reached the drive that put them up to win the game. Tomlin opted to remember that he accepted that penalty. That 4th and 1, they probably would have kicked it, or at least maybe. Who knows? They might have would have went for it too. That moved the Browns back 5 yards. They made it 3rd and 6. Jameis Winston, I will say, he did get his first 3rd down conversion of the night on that one. So maybe Tomlin was thinking, hey, man, he hasn't converted one all night. He's not going to do it here. But he did. He was clutch in that moment. That led to the go-ahead touchdown. And not only did another minute burn off the clock, but the Browns led by 5. If they keep the field goal, they'll led by 1. Like I said, not sure if they'd keep the field goal or not. Maybe they still would decide to go for it. Also, in that at the end of the first half, you go look at it, Tomlin, that last possession. Oh yeah, that last possession actually. Remember they were on the, I believe they on the 2-yard line, and he allowed nearly like 40 seconds to run off the clock on defense when they probably should just let them score. So the final 2 minutes really of both halves were kind of costly for Mike Tomlin and for the Steelers. So it's one of those things where I mean, Tomlin's a great coach, but I do think there was some quick, and Justin Fields playing late in that final, but second to last drive for the Steelers. They have a 3rd down, and they left Justin Fields on the field for the 3rd down, and he threw it deep. Incompletion to, I believe it was Pickens, if I'm not mistaken. Why not have Russell Wilson in for that clutch 3rd down? Because if you get the conversion there, you pretty much can try to seal the game, or at least you can take another minute, 90 seconds off the clock there. And they left Justin Fields in. And not that Justin Fields didn't provide a spark. He did. But man, Russell Wilson, I'd have put him in for. I know Russell Wilson actually has some issues, but on 3rd downs, he was incredible. He was 11 of 12 for 198 yards. And he had, his deep ball was actually working pretty well in that crazy weather. But he was incredible on 3rd downs. He was 11 of 12 for 198 yards and a touchdown. Why not have him in there on 3rd down? On the most important 3rd down of the game, you had Justin Fields in there. Because not saying Justin Fields was bad in that game. He had made you some plays. He had a 30-yard run that was good. Remember, he was in there. The roughing the passer call would led to a Steelers touchdown. He was in on that play, so he had made some plays. But man, Russ was cooking on 3rd down. I think situationally, that might have been a dang coaching mistake too, or a miscalculation, I should say. So I think that. So in a tight game like that, I'll say maybe Tomlin, some of his decisions cost the Steelers in that situation. And I'll throw this out there too. If you look at the Steelers' record, it's crazy versus winning teams, teams with winning records. They're 5-0 versus teams with losing records. Now they're 3-3. They're 500 versus teams below 500, and they're 5-0 undefeated versus teams with winning records. Steelers are a strange beast.
Yeah, and I feel like that's kind of Winston's, like at least with the Browns so far, has been if he's playing a team that you're kind of write him off, then he can go in there and play well. But if you're expecting Winston to just have a good game and play well against a team that they should be able to compete against, he'll play subpar.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, so they all just kind of aligned.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and then have a snow game where, Russell Wilson kind of, you see more of his flaws in that game.
Yeah, you did. No, he did. Like I said, maybe that's why, but still, I'd have went with Russell Wilson on that crucial 3rd down over Justin Fields. But no, Russell Wilson wasn't perfect. He made some mistakes too. Had he had some crucial he had a turnover in that game too. But man, I just thought the Steelers, there were a couple of, the ball could have, well, obviously the ball could have fallen either way. That was just a crazy game overall. But I do think there were like 3 or 4 decisions that if they had gone the Steelers' way could have tipped the scales. But they end up losing that game to the Browns. And now the Browns, the Steelers' losses are to a Flacco. Remember, Joe Flacco came in the game for the Colts. They lost to the Cowboys. Remember, they lost to the Cowboys. I forgot they lost to the Cowboys. Like that, one of the worst Cowboys teams we've seen in years, and then lost to this Browns team. Wow. It's hard to. That's why some people think the Steelers are pretenders. They don't think they're actually true. That's at least the talking point nationally, that the Steelers aren't for real, because look how they don't beat the teams they're supposed to beat. But I look at the teams that, when they have to play a high level opponent, they rise to the occasion. So not sure what that says about the Steelers. That's a weird thing. That's why there's some frustration with Mike Tomlin on the part of the Steelers fan base too.
And isn't it just kind of where you expect in a snow game for the run game to really be dominant? You expect just hand the ball off, lower your shoulder, put the boom on these guys, and defenders are going to back off a little bit, because it's going to really hurt when you start getting hit and the guy keeps going through to you over and over again. You just say that's the toughness of running backs. It wasn't like no one did great in the running game.
Not really.
No, it was running with force in the game. Nick Chubb had 2 touchdowns, but he averaged under 4 yards a carry.
No, you're right about that.
And it was just, that's kind of where you look at a game like that and you're like, well, we have to throw, but we know that's a bad idea in the snow. And because all the routes are going to be somewhat off because the timing, because everyone's just going to move a little bit slower in the snow. So timing wise, everything's going to be just a little bit off. And then
ball's a brick.
Hands are slippery. Everything should say you should run the football right now, but they weren't even able to really. It was just a weird. It was very much that first game of snow where no one really knew how to deal with it.
Oh yeah.
I don't think
all the advantages or disadvantages are out the window. They don't really matter.
Yeah,
it snows like that. It's survival. It's survival ball at that point. And you're right. I don't know why the run game out. And I thought that would have given. And I guess I thought that it had been an advantage to the Steelers too. The Steelers had to have a pretty good run game. But to your point about the chaos and how you really couldn't predict what was going to work, Jameis Winston completed 5 or 6 passes on the run for 97 yards. He started playing backyard football.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it ultimately helped Jameis, because Jameis has been a backyard football guy his entire career.
Yeah, that's true.
He's always been a sandlot football kind of guy, and that's what's hurt him. At the highest level, it's like, no, man, you have to work within the system. And when the system really is not applicable because of that weather and how extreme it was, it just kind of went back. It reverted back to sandlot football for him, and I think he's good at that. He's comfortable in that. And yeah, he completed 5 or 6 passes when he was just on the run, moving around for 97 yards in those conditions. On all other passes, he was 13 of 21 for 122 yards and an interception. So, which a lot of that was him having to work from the pocket. He's like, nah, man, let me just go out there and make plays. And we saw the best of Jameis Winston. And I think the teams they adapted to it, once, they got used to it a little bit. And it wasn't, the torrential snow. It wasn't a snowstorm. I think it settled a little bit later on in the game too. So that they did have 27 points combined in 4 touchdowns in the fourth quarter in week 12, and they combined for 16 points and 1 touchdown in the first 3 quarters. So they got kind of used to it, but I would say Jameis showed up in the clutch. He did. I mean, that was a clutch performance by Jameis in crazy, wild conditions. We also didn't mention Myles Garrett, who is a force of. I mean, he's also, other than Jameis Winston, you could argue Myles Garrett is the reason they won the game. That he made so many splash plays in the first half. He had 3 sacks in the first half alone. I mean, this dude was a force of nature. And he now has 10 sacks on the season already. It's his 7th straight season with at least 10 sacks. The only other players to do that since 1982, I believe that's when they first started keeping track of the stats of sacks. Didn't mean to sound like Dr. Seuss there. Reggie White did it 9 times, 9 straight seasons with 10 plus sacks. John Randall, 8. LT, Lawrence Taylor, 7. Bruce Smith, 7. Jared Allen, 7. DeMarcus Ware, 7. So he's in that group. So he's already up, basically. He is a Hall of Famer. And who knows the way honestly, really the pace that he's on, he could end up setting the record for the having 10 straight seasons, surpassing Reggie White with at least 10 plus sacks, which has not been done in the modern era since they've been keeping track of it. So he might win. He's probably going to win Defensive Player of the Year again. Oh, matter of fact, he stated such. He basically challenged the rest of the NFL. He challenged every defensive player in the league. I think edge rushers. I'll say he challenged every edge rusher or D lineman or pass rusher. He essentially challenged them, saying that he's the man. It's almost a Ric Flair like promo. Do we have this from Myles Garrett? Here it is.
I'm number one, and that's from edge defender one, edge one to defensive player of the year. I'm the guy. So that runs through me. There's no other person being defended as I am or schemed or planned against like I am. So this goes to show, you can throw that out the window. I'm going to find a way.
Okay. I mean, do we argue that? Are we arguing against that?
100%. You have to win games. If you're a below 500 team, you don't win defensive player of the year. Your defense hasn't been great as a whole. He has certain games where he has 3 sacks. He has other games where he's non-existent. He also tailed off at the end of last year. He had 2 sacks in the last 5 games last year. So I get it. When you're feeling good after a game like that, you've got 3 wins on the season. Your defense isn't the powerhouse it was last year. The reason you won it last year is because the defense basically got you into the playoffs. And you led a defense that got a Joe Flacco-led Browns into the playoffs. So that's how you won the defensive player of the year. Right now, TJ Watt is leading a defense that is getting the Steelers to an 8-3 record, and TJ Watt is ahead of you because defense is leading the Steelers into the playoffs right now.
That's true. No, that's a good argument.
I mean, I get it. It's great that you're playing well, but if you're a 5-win team at the end of the season, you're not winning defensive player of the year because your defense didn't matter. In the grand scheme of things, it didn't matter. Yeah,
last year, at least you made the playoffs.
Yeah. No, the defense was the best defense in NFL last year. He led the best defense in the NFL last year. That's how you easily win defensive player of the year. You lead the best defense. They're middle of the pack defense this year?
They're not in the top 10, I don't think.
So you're a middle of the pack defense. You're a bad team. There's not the same clout you had last year when you were leading the best defense. And even when your sacks went down, it was because they were double and triple teaming you and you were allowing the rest of your team to come around and get sacks and still be the high power defense. That's not the case as much this year. So I get it. You feel good after a win, but no, it does not run through Cleveland. Nothing runs through Cleveland right now.
Well, there's some stuff that runs through Cleveland. It's just saying. I don't know. I want to say it on these airways. But no, I agree. That's a great point. I agree with you. Last year was a different situation altogether, and this year I'm looking at Cleveland's defense. Oh, good Lord, yeah, they're actually one of the worst defense. Yeah. If you look at scoring defense wise, they're actually at the bottom. They're in the bottom 10.
Yeah, so
they're closer to the bottom 10 than they are to being a top 10 defense.
I say it's that's.
But he's a top 5
He's
player.
A dominant player, but those guys exist around the league
defensively,
and they don't win defensive player of the year. He would have to set the single season sack record, and then you get back in the conversation.
He's not on that kind of pace.
No,
but he's on a good pace. He's on a pace for probably 16, 17 sacks. It's a good pace. But it's not the Aiden Hutchinson pace.
No, exactly.
Aiden Hutchinson went down 6 weeks ago, and still also, is top 10 in sacks in the league.
And also Aiden Hutchinson on the best team in the NFL right now.
Yeah, he would have won it.
Yeah,
it would have been wrapped up pretty easy. It was going to be his award, not TJ Watt's, nobody's. It was going to be.
I agree. Award. Yeah, so because at the end of the day, I get they're individual awards, but it's a team sport.
Yeah, that dude. Yeah, Aiden Hutchinson is 8th. He's 8th in sacks still. How long has this dude been out?
It's been out since the Cowboys. The Cowboys were still a contender.
Ages ago. That's crazy. That dude is still he was gonna win it. It was gonna be him.
Oh, not even. Yeah, it wasn't even close.
And your other sack leader is Trey Hendrickson on the Bengals, who are the best bad team in the league. So going back to your theory, he ain't gonna win it either.
Nope, because that defense isn't very good.
Yeah, and then there's Dexter Lawrence, who he's 9th, but that's the Giants. They're not actually that's a good point to your theory. They got to go to somebody who's a contender. I mean, in terms of if you can go to sacks, and it's not any of your sack leaders, so it's gonna be somebody else who ends up.
No, and I mean, and there's still several.
No, you still got a long way to go. But I'm just saying, like right now, the pace is because TJ Watt has 7.5. That's a good pace, but it's not like he's gonna have it's not pace to have a monster season or anything.
No.
So I wonder if it'll be another position. Is my point at defensive player.
It could be. Yeah, it could be.
Maybe maybe looking at a DB or something. I got to look at who's leading the league in interceptions because maybe it's that. Maybe it's an interception leader this year.
Kirby Joseph from Detroit right now.
From Detroit. There you go.
Is leading.
That's not sexy enough, though.
It's not.
I'm not gonna lie to you. Right? He's a good player, but it's like, would that do anything for you? Not really. No. So I don't know. Somebody else will emerge. We'll see. But yeah, that'll be interesting conversation. All right, let's get to the break. We'll come back and we got to start talking about the Longhorns and their upcoming matchup this weekend with the Kentucky Wildcats. We'll hear from Steve Sarkisian and also talk about the X factors in that matchup. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get to some Texas football conversation, and we'll hear from Steve Sarkisian here in just a moment. But quickly, the latest availability report that came out yesterday for the Texas-Kentucky matchup. For Texas, the upgrades are Mo Blackwell and Colton Vasek are now probable for the Kentucky game. That's good. Both of those guys were unavailable for the last game, and DeAndre Moore remains questionable. So he still remains questionable. The other players who have been out most of the season, Derek Williams Jr., C.J. Baxter, Christian Clark, Felton Gardner, of course, they're out. But DeAndre Moore still questionable for that matchup versus Kentucky. And for Kentucky, that also hasn't been much movement as well. Cortland Ford, Khalil Saunders still questionable. J.J. Weaver probable. I believe that was the case with their last availability report. So we'll keep you abreast of everything happening with DeAndre Moore if we hear anything about that. But good news for Mo Blackwell and for Colton Vasek. Both of those guys upgraded to probable for the Kentucky matchup. All right, let's hear from Steve Sarkisian. Been a lot of talk about Quinn Ewers this week. Ton of talk about Quinn Ewers and whether Quinn Ewers is a quarterback that you can depend on to play at a championship level. Is he capable of being a championship caliber quarterback? Because Longhorn fans got their sights set on championship, as they should. So Sark was asked about Quinn Ewers, and really what Quinn Ewers has been going through. He's a third-year quarterback. So here's Sark. It's a bit of a long answer, but I want you guys to hear Sark's thoughts about Quinn Ewers as a third-year starting quarterback this season.
Well, for me, it's not so unique to me as maybe it is around the country. Like the guys that have really come into our programs, whether it's been here or the other stops that we've had, we've kind of had that continuity with the players, whether they were backups early on in their career, then became starters, or were starters and remain starters. And so I enjoy that process because I think you learn and grow with that person as we evolve as an offense, as his game continues to develop and you start to try to play to their strengths and what they do well. You start to feel their presence and their leadership. And I think that's with Quinn exactly what it's been, from where he was year one to where he is today, to the rapport he has with his teammates, to the mental and physical toughness he exudes. For us, I think is one that's admired in the locker room. And so I think there wasn't a more fitting play for him than the 4th and 2 last week against Arkansas, where we called a zone read with him. And, he decides to try to run the safety over to get the first down to seal the victory. And I just think that's who Quinn is. And a lot of times that doesn't come out in kind of his personality off the field, but internally we know the competitive nature that he has. And so for that to play out that way, I thought was a really cool moment. It was a cool moment to see him show some excitement. And obviously all of us on the sidelines were excited as well. So I've been proud of Quinn. I really feel like he's as healthy as he's been now today that he was earlier in the season. And that's always the challenge of playing quarterback and playing football in general. November, you're generally not healthy. And he obviously endured a pretty tough injury early on, but is making some really big plays for us at critical moments.
All right, so injury, not a concern. As healthy as Quinn has been all year long, that's really good news. And, I know some Longhorn fans have brought up, Quinn's play as of late. I will call it inconsistent. It hasn't necessarily been as consistent as we would have liked, but they've only lost 3 games in the last 2 years. They're not going to bench Quinn unless Quinn has a meltdown of epic proportions in the game, throwing 3-4 picks, and maybe like kind of how the Georgia game went down. Quinn is the starting quarterback. There is no controversy at all on the 40 acres. I know people have discussed that they realistically believe that the team has a better shot to win with Arch. You're entitled to your opinion. The team is firmly behind Quinn. They got Janae Barnes wearing a T-shirt with Quinn's face on it. That to me signals support. And every time somebody talks about Quinn, they talk about him as their quarterback. So Sark did open the door in the Georgia game for the talk and the controversy, and us getting a chance to see Arch have 2 starts after Quinn went down with an injury. But truth is, like I said, I don't think that's a realistic conversation. I don't necessarily think that's at all. Like I don't even think Sark has considered it really, and I don't know if he will consider it unless they're in a championship game or in the playoff. And like I said, Quinn's having one of the worst games we've ever seen. I'm talking about 3-4 interceptions, turnovers in a half. And then yes, I could see Sark doing something if he has a total meltdown. Other than that, he's your quarterback, guys. He's the quarterback, and he wins. There is no doubt about it. It'd be different if they were losing games. Man, they're 9-1. All right, hoping to be 10-1 when they beat Kentucky. That is the hope. But Kentucky plays well against ranked teams. They play their best games against ranked teams. That has been the case for them all season long. When you're talking about Ole Miss, or you're talking about versus Tennessee or versus Georgia, and Texas will be one of those teams, and they do it both on the road and at home. Their brand of football travels with them. Here's Sark talking about when Kentucky plays well as a team and what makes them a problem.
Well, they just play really good defense. They minimize the explosive plays. They can bog you down. I think Ole Miss scored 17 points against them. I think Georgia scored 13 points against them. I think Tennessee got a couple scores late to get to 28. And so they can kind of control the game that way. And then offensively, they're a run first offense that can control the clock. And then they get yards in the return game, and that both returners are excellent players. And so you've got to play sound football against them. We've got to find explosive plays on the offensive side of the ball. We got to minimize the return yards. And then we got to make sure that we get off the field on defense. That if they start bleeding the clock because they're getting third down conversions and extending drives, that then the game can get shortened, and now you're in one of those types of games in the fourth quarter with them. So, we've got a work cut out for us for sure.
Defensively, they are, like I said, to me, they're impressive. Defensively, I liked what I've seen on film from Kentucky. That'll be a problematic matchup at times for Texas to figure out. Of course, Texas has a top 20 offense, so Sark is going to score some points, and Texas will score points. There's no doubt about that. But that defense is no pushover. Offensively, different discussion altogether. But here's Sark when he was talking about Mark and Mike Stoops, because you're going up against Mark Stoops, defensive-minded coach. That's the calling card of the Stoops family, right? That's their family business, is defense. Here is Sark talking about his relationship actually with the Stoops family. Turns out it goes back to his Pac-12 days.
Yeah, Mark and Mike are tremendous football coaches. They all the way back to their days at Youngstown, and then as they grew in the profession. I actually started competing against them, I think, when they were at Arizona, and I was an assistant at USC. And then in my time at Washington, and they've always played great defensive football. And they're so sound, they're so disciplined, and they recruit really good looking players. You guys will see that Saturday when that defense takes the field. They're an NFL defense with first round draft picks. And then, Mike and I had the opportunity to work together at Alabama. We were both analysts there, and he became a great friend. He was a golfing buddy. So a ton of respect for those guys and what they do and the job they've done at Kentucky. And I know the record isn't what they'd like it to be this year, but when you really turn on the tape and you watch their games, that record could be flipped very easily. And there are a lot of tight ball games. So, and for Bush, we had a year together in Atlanta, very smart guy, really articulate, a guy that will, devise a game plan that's going to give his guys an opportunity to have some success. So a ton of respect for all those guys on that staff.
Remember when Sark first got to Texas, he tried to hire, I think it was Mike Stoops he wanted to hire when he first got to Texas, and the blowback from the fans on social media was crazy. That was just the report, was that, he was going to hire him on the staff. I don't know for what, either a position coach job or maybe as an assistant position coach or something like that. It wasn't, trust me, as a high level position. But Longhorn fans was not having it. They were not having the Stoops on the staff. The tail wagged the dog on that one. That report died within like 36 hours. It was dead. It was crazy. I don't think we've ever seen anything like it. You remember this, right?
I do. I vaguely remember. Yeah.
Oh man, Longhorn fans lost it. It was like, nope, no Stoops on the staff. It's like you cannot have a Stoops on the staff. That's how anti-Texas the Stoops family has been.
Yeah, it's a bowl. It's a rat.
Yeah, exactly. Because everybody believes that, like me, the Stoops family has always been out to get Texas, to sabotage Texas, just because of Bob Stoops' time there at Oklahoma. And like I said, I believe there literally is a text chain. I think they have a group chat between the Stoops family, that including the Mark and Mike on there too. Lincoln Riley's probably on there. Jeff Levy's probably on there because of his time there at Oklahoma. And you end up being a friend of the Stoops family or just an associate of the Stoops family. But it is their hatred for Texas that binds them, that connects them. So that's why Longhorn fans kind of believe, they're paranoid about that too. Otherwise, they wouldn't have freaked out about Stoops being on the staff. It's like, what's wrong with that? He's a football coach. They're like, nope, we don't trust Stoops. We don't trust the Stoops. Never trust the Stoops. All right, we come back. We'll get into, we trust my man Patrick for the topic for the Big Fat Poll today, and also for the musically themed day of the week, because it is a 5-1-2 Friday right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis, some Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn.
Back in the Rodcast here on a Friday, and that means it's a 5-1-2 Friday where I'll play you local music you can go check out around town this weekend. This is Tough on Fridays, and they are playing Sunday at the Mohawk. Let's get to the Big Fat Poll of the day. Text lines open 512-447-3776, and we'll get this posted up on X at the Horn ATX.
Patrick's Big Fat Poll of the day on the Horn.
Big Fat Poll of the day today. How many points will Texas score against Kentucky? If you want to throw in your final score predictions, go ahead and throw that in as well. But how many points will Texas score against Kentucky? We'll give you 0-14, 15-24, 25-34, and 35 plus. Still I get that seems a little high for Kentucky. However, that is what Vegas basically has it at. So I go with Vegas because they seem to know what they're talking about a lot. So I'll just, if they say that Texas can win by 35 plus points, then I'll still put that option in there. It seems a little high. So maybe we'll go a little bit lower on this one. But how many points will Texas score against Kentucky?
I got them right at 30. Get them right at 30. Like literally 30 on the dot. That's what I'm going. I don't want to go over 30. I'm like going under 30. That's what I'm going.
Price is right rule in this one. 30 right on the dot. Not a penny more.
Yep, that's where I am. I'm not, because I think everybody was overconfident in the Arkansas going into the Arkansas game after watching Ole Miss light up Arkansas, and then me giving you guys the defensive stats about Arkansas, and they were bad, no doubt about that. But the extra bye week made a big difference. Them playing that 3 high made a big difference. I think Mark Stoops, he's a defensive-minded coach. I think he'll take some of the elements of that defensive game plan that Arkansas had. I think he's going to take some of the elements that Texas had struggled with, some of those defensive concepts Texas struggled with in that 3-game stretch, Oklahoma, Georgia, and Vanderbilt. And he's a defensive-minded guy, and there's enough there for you to put. You guys could do it too. You guys know the Longhorn team pretty well, to put together a pretty decent defensive game plan versus Texas.
Yeah.
To at least be able to start, and you have the quality personnel to do it. You got an NFL caliber defensive tackle. You got NFL linebacker Maxwell Hairston. We talked about him. He's the corner, who's an NFL corner. He's coming back. And he's been out for a few weeks. And he's going to be available. So they have some of the pieces to pull off a sophisticated game plan with a lot of those elements. And I think, they'll make some plays here and there against Texas. And the truth is, Texas offense is inconsistent. You never know what kind of offense we're going to get with Texas. It could, if it comes out like it looked versus Florida, I mean, they could light them up. They could. But if they come out and look like they did versus Arkansas early, or in the Vanderbilt game, and be a little bit off at times, then I could see them scoring 30 or a little bit below 30. So I'm going to go 30 on the dot. Let me give Kentucky a little bit of credit and say their defense will travel, which it has against some of the better offenses in the SEC.
Yeah,
they play good defense.
No, I think that it'll travel. I think Texas does play well at home. I'm with you. I'm around 30 points too, because I think they play well at home. The way it becomes, big is if Texas goes early, because Texas goes early. We talked about it. Brock Vandagriff does not protect the ball very well. If you have to start throwing the ball more, start trying to get back into this game, you're down 2-3 scores. If you're Kentucky, that's where Texas defense can zone in and kind of get a few more turnovers. And that's where the game just gets blown out of proportion, because now you're playing on a short field with Texas, and they can just march down the field and start scoring. So if Texas is able to get going early, hopefully it'll be, beautiful weather, 2:30 game here in Austin.
Nice.
Get out there and just
farewell night. Should be inspired by that, night. Right?
Just get everybody out there, have a good old time. I still don't think we've seen who's all walking. It'll be interesting to see how many people are actually out there. Because I know Johnny Barron did it last year.
Yes, now I don't even know the rules anymore. You can do it, and then if you're an underclassman, not sure, I guess you can do it then and still do it again. So
because I remember, because Johnny did it last year.
Yeah, he said he did it, and he's doing it again. So I'm like, okay, I guess if you're an underclassman, they don't know, you can do it.
Yeah, so we'll see. I'm assuming Quinn is going to do it. You assume
oh yeah, Quinn's. Some people are theorizing that Quinn may come back.
Oh no, I don't think Quinn's coming back.
No, I'm talking about some. I said some people, not you. Some people are theorizing that, or at least asking about that. I don't think Quinn's coming back. I don't think Quinn's being benched, and I don't think he's coming back.
No, I think there's been a plan in place for him to go, and him staying another year is not necessarily going to really do much for him at this point.
No, they've talked about I mean, obviously. We just had a discussion yesterday about how basically comparing this year's Quinn to last year's Quinn, and which one you taking. We're like, I'm kind of torn.
Yeah.
So have you seen as much growth as you anticipate? If not, I'm with you. It's like, well, we're not going to grow in the third year as a starting quarterback. No. I don't know if you're the fourth year.
No, you're just another year older. You're just another year of, So I don't think he's coming back. The one part of you will say is Quinn the guy who still, his family says you're walking? We don't care what you think. Because I could see Quinn himself being a guy who's like, I don't want to do that. I just want to go play football. But I figure his family would be like, no, you're doing it.
You got no choice. Yeah. Mama wants that. Oh, yeah. Mama wants that. Dad wants that moment. They got nothing to do with you.
Yeah. So that's what
it's
I'm
like
saying.
It's like you graduating. At graduation, got nothing to do with you.
Yeah, exactly. No,
we walk across stage, got nothing to do with you. That's for
so
Mama.
that was the point. I can imagine Quinn being somebody who's more focused on the team, focused on the game, and just going, I don't want to, I don't care. It's never been about that. So I could see Quinn, but I think his parents will do it. So, so I think he'll walk. But I'll be curious to see how many of these guys, like a Matthew Golden, does he do it?
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be curious to see that because he's a junior. He could go, he could stay. We don't know where he sits.
It doesn't and it doesn't give us any real indication because you could walk and still come back. Yeah. So it's like, ooh, is Matthew Golden?
Well, let's put it this way: if you walk, it means you are at least judging the NFL. You have not already made your mind up you're coming back. That's
fair. But you could. But I still think I don't even, like I said, I don't know if it matters at all anymore because the way Janae did, he was just joking. He was like, I did it last year. It's like, so dude's just trying to do it for the joke of it. Like, what's happening? Is it a real thing? Because you got to bring your parents down and all that stuff. And like you said, you got to let the announcer guy know. So it's got to be known beforehand. It's a whole thing. So I don't know what.
They got to get the whole.
You're probably right. At least they decide that they want to keep their options open and. That's what they're still thinking about it.
They're still thinking about the NFL. We'll see if they'll come back or not. So that'll be interesting to see. But that going to that, the emotion of that is Texas able to kind of turn it around and score in their first two drives. I don't even say first drive anymore. That first drive, they almost never. There's always something that happens in that first drive.
It is. They got bad luck on first drive. It's not bad luck. They're just bad execution. But I'm with you. It's
so I'll say the first two. If they're scoring that second drive, that's where things can start to open up for Texas.
Sark believes you too. That's why he went for it on 4th and 1 on his own 24 versus Florida. He's like, the first two drives are crucial. Yeah. And that's another thing too, when we'll talk about it, Kentucky's got a good first quarter defense. The first quarter defense is one of the best in the country. They come out, throwing blows. And that's why it's important for Texas to get off to a good start. All right, that is the topic for the Big Fat Poll today. I got them right at 30 on the dot. I think the team that scored the most against them is Florida. And Florida, I think Florida scored like 40, like 45, something like that on them. I think Florida scored a lot of points on them. Yeah. So that was with DJ Lagway.
DJ Lagway's playing well.
When DJ Lagway was in there, he plays well.
He's been playing well.
He does. And they believe they can win with DJ Lagway in there.
Lane Kiffin better watch out.
Yeah, no, they're dangerous because he's the best deep ball passer in the country. I don't know if I've seen a quarterback throw a better deep ball than DJ Lagway in the entire country in college football. Yeah. All right, we'll come back. We'll get into, speaking of college football, there's a crazy story in college football. It's not related to Texas directly, but indirectly it's related to every power program across the country. Times are getting wild. And honestly, I'm a little bit jealous. I don't know if Texas has a guy like this that loves the program as much as this guy loves his program. We'll discuss it when we come back. Right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Rivers coming back on the horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a Freak Flag Feel Good, Fake It Till You Make It. Ric Flair, woo! 512 Friday edition of the Rodcast. And that means my co-host, the Ideal Patrick Davis, is playing jams from local bands and artists, very talented human beings that you have a chance to catch live right here in the ATX. Who are jamming right now, Patrick?
This is the great Ruthie Foster. She is playing Saturday night at the Paramount Theater.
Oh, yeah. I like that. Nice groove there. All right. We'll get back to some more 512 Friday jams for you as the show continues. We'll also continue to talk about Texas, Kentucky. Matter of fact, in Rod's Rant, we'll just get to breaking down that matchup a little bit. We've been breaking it down all week long, but we'll review the breakdown, talk about the X factors and the matchup with the Wildcats. Also, we got to get to this story. There's a college football story it is a crazy, wild, surreal story, which actually is another chapter from the most bizarre story of the 2023 season in college football. So we'll give you that update coming up here in just a few moments. But we'll also dive into some more NFL news, notes, and nuggets. We'll talk Texans and Cowboys coming up a little bit later on in the show as well, and dive into some of the college football matchups, the biggest college football matchups over the weekend. All right, so before we get started, let's dive right. Oh, also, let me forget about the topic for the Big Fat Poll today. Let's not forget about that. Patrick, give the folks the topic for the Big Fat Poll of the day.
Time for the Big Fat Poll of the day. How many points will Texas score against Kentucky? You can drop your score projections and your final score projections in as well. We gave you 0 to 14, 15 to 24, 25 to 34, and 35 plus. Early voting, 25 to 34 is dominating right now. Not surprising. That's where I'm at. That's where Rod's at. That's early voting. My man Chan on the text line's got 24 to 7 Texas.
Oh, see, a lot of respect for that Kentucky defense.
Yeah, 24. So Chan is a bit of a warrior too. So you know,
I would say respect for both defenses. I mean, we could end up with a defensive kind of struggle here. Could be, you know what I mean? Shout out to Chan. What's up, man? But yeah, man, you could end up with a defensive struggle here. So we'll see. If Texas scores only, what did Chan say? 20? What do you have?
24 to 7.
Yeah, that's man. Longhorn fans are not going to be happy with that. I can tell you that right now. 24 points at home. Mm-mm. But like I said, remember my ugly duckling take from early in the week.
Yep.
Like that's. If it is 24 to 7, like Chan is predicting, you got to look at it as if you're a defensive oriented team and you win with defense, that's not a bad score. You still beat them by double digits.
Yeah.
Right. I believe, I know the line is like 20 something, so you wouldn't cover. All right. But, winning by double digits, if you're a defensive oriented team, is not a bad thing.
No.
And I do wonder if Sark now with the offense, if, now they have different things they're trying to achieve now because we know what the defense is. There is nothing inconsistent about the defense. There is no weakness. What's the weakness of the defense? I mean, I would say that Arkansas started to run behind that left guard a little bit. Okay, they got some success running behind left guard. Florida ran the rock a little bit when the game was already decided.
Yeah.
They got a chance to run the rock. So maybe you can run the rock if you got some dogs in the backfield, which Arkansas did and Florida did too. So you got to have a talented backfield, and you got some size up front, which Florida has size, and of course the Hogs, Sam Pittman's an O-line guy. They got size up front. So maybe you can go there that it's possible you can run the rock a little bit potentially versus the Texas defense. But it's not like they give up a lot. It's not like there's a true weakness there that we've been able to identify, systemically throughout the season. It's just like every now and then you see a team that's able to, they got a good run there against the Texas defense. Okay, they popped one against the Texas defense. I think they've given up one run. Oh man, I got to make sure I get that right. I'll go find out how many rushes they've given up over 20 yards. It was 2 weeks ago. It was like one. It was that one versus, was it UTSA? That was the only explosive run they have given up. Since then, I'm sure maybe there's been one. But my point is, that's what Texas is leading with. That's their identity now. Their identity is their defense. So if it's 24 to 7, I know it's going to be a lot of complaining and talking about what's wrong with the offense and how inconsistent it is. Guys, we are 10 games in, and expecting the offense all of a sudden to magically transform into what we all hoped and expected it would be now. I I don't know if that's going to happen. Can we see it get on a little heater? That would be great. What we're hoping is that Quinn gets on a heater, right? That Quinn just has like a 3 or 4 game stretch at some point here. It starts up where his best stretch of the season playing. What's his best stretch of the season? Because he was injured, so it hasn't been since he came back from the injury because there's been no stretch. At Michigan, he looked good before the injury. Y'all know, even the UTSA game, he was looking pretty good, wasn't he? I thought so, coming out of the Michigan game. And maybe that was start the season was the best stretch. But my point is, I don't know if you get this magical transformation from the offense now at the end of the season. Not sure that's going to happen. You still got a top 20 offense. We are truly crying from a yacht. It's a top 20 offense.
Yes. No, it is. I know, but people want
it's not like it's
70-0 every game.
Yes, I get it. No. You want to you want to believe that you have a championship caliber offense and defense. Yes. Right now, you have a championship caliber defense. Do you have a championship caliber offense? You can win a championship with that offense.
Yeah,
you can, but it has to work
because
in complementary fashion with the defense.
Let's put it this way: the low end of our offense is around 20 points.
You can win with that.
That's the low end. That's the low end of we had a bad offensive game, 20 points. Yeah. So if you say
unless you're playing Georgia,
it's a one time. Say that one.
Well, no, get you. There's only like 2 or 3 teams that can do that to you. Georgia's one.
Yeah, and there was, I think that was Georgia and Texas just having that night game, the biggest game. They weren't as ready as they needed to be
for the moment. Yeah, but the offense wasn't. Defense was.
Yeah, the offense wasn't, and so it just got out of hand very quickly. Yeah. We got another one, 27-10. So another 17-point win.
Y'all are flipping. See, y'all starting to see the ugly duckling for the beautiful swan. Like, all right, you know what? Why we got these 30-something? We're in the SEC now, and it's all right. Yeah. It's all right to just go out there, lead with your defense, and play complementary football. You're not gonna stop Texas. Even Georgia, when Texas made adjustments, they couldn't just stop Texas. Texas has to move the football when they settled down in the second half. They got too many weapons for that. But yeah, I think I'm done with the lofty, unrealistic expectations for the offense. I know what they are. I know what the defense is too, though. I know what they are, and I'm fine. I'm not criticizing them. This is not me giving up on the offense or anything, but I think we all thought before the season they're going to be the elite component of the team, and it's okay if they're not. Yeah. It's okay. The defense is the elite component. We knew before the season, did we expect the defense to be elite? No. We didn't expect the defense and the offense to be elite. We thought the offense would be elite and the defense would be improved to the point where they would be top 40, top 20, whatever. Now it's just flipped, guys. You got an elite defense and a top 20 offense. You still got the components you need to win a championship.
Yeah. No, going into this season is the secondary still, according to some, complete trash? Is the secondary going to be destroyed all season?
It wasn't.
And we lost Byron Murphy and Tavondre Sweat, so maybe they'll be able to run on us too.
Yep.
That was the initial thought I will probably be okay, but that secondary's got a lot of holes in it that they need to fix. And the defensive line, there's no way they can be as good as they were last year.
Yep.
And now the pass rush is better than it was last year. The run defense is probably not exactly the same, but still pretty good.
Yeah, it's still good. It's just not what it was last year when you were
the secondary got so good that now late in games, the only way to attack you is in that run defense.
I'm not throwing at that secondary.
Guys back to play more of a prevent. They go, well, at least we can get 6 yards of carry now because everyone's dropped back and they got 4 in the box, and we can run 5-on-4 on them.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. According to Nash at Nash Talk Texas, the last 25 years of D1 FBS football, Texas's pass defense, out of 3,094 teams, number 1 in yards per completion allowed, number 5 in yards per attempt allowed, number 11 in passing yards per game allowed out of 3,094 teams. So I think I handed off. That's a stingy group back there. And you're right. We're going to be talking about this. We don't appreciate this enough. Guys, you're going to be talking about the greatest turnaround potentially for a pass defense in like the last 30, 40 years in college football. Y'all didn't realize how bad they were last year. If you look at like passing yards per game allowed, they were like 100 and opposing passer. They were 116th. Remember how many bombs they used to give up, the deep passes, 20-plus yard passes? They were 108th in the country in 20-plus yard passes allowed. And now they are first and second in like one off season, that's pretty wild. Like I said, we expected improvement. That's crazy. That is unbelievable.
Yeah. No, it's
and so it's
who knew Johnny Nansen was going to come in and be like, "Hey, you guys, you're trying to stop him from catching the football." Oh, that's
no,
what
it is.
Was.
It's remarkable. I remember before the season, I don't think Blake Gideon and Terry Joseph got the extensions a lot of the other coaches got.
Yeah,
I believe they still were kind of on 1-year deals. It's time to, if that was indeed true, trying to get those dudes a extension and a raise. It needs to come today, because those dudes that's an amazing turnaround and a great job. So I am not, like I said, I am the ugly duckling thing. I'm not as worried about the team as I was, because I look at the team through a different prism now. Their defense is what they lead with. That's their identity. And they win a game by 13 to 14 points, but only score 27 points. I think I'm gonna celebrate that. Yeah. Instead of coming on here and being like, oh man, guys, I don't know what's wrong with this offense. And yes, when you have to play Georgia and then Ohio State down the line, and who was it, Oregon down the line, could that come back to haunt you? It could come back to haunt you then. But man, you got a ways before you got to worry about that. You got a ways before you got to worry about that. And that, if that's what the complaint is, that I get. But man, you're looking ahead. How many games? You're looking ahead a lot of games there. Now, I don't know who you're going to face in the SEC title game, but let's worry about that matchup when we get to it. But like I said, the concern that then you would basically be saying that your defense, because the defense hasn't been tested, and when you go up against one of those powerhouse programs that I just mentioned, could you fail that test? And that's the question. Yeah, I mean, like that's the concern, I guess, and the anxiety. But right now, man, that defense is playing like an all-time great defense. Just got to accept that that's who you are now as a team. And you do have all the components to win a national title. You're just not a juggernaut because you're not elite in all phases. But you're good. You're really good. Like I said, we're crying from a yacht. We're talking about a top 20 offense here mostly. Anyway, all right, let's get to the Horn headlines, and I'll come back. We'll talk about that college football story. Wild college football story. One of the wildest. Honestly, it was the wildest college football story last year, and this is just a continuation of it, the next chapter. We'll discuss it on the other side. But first, let's get educated, updated, and informed with all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn headlines.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the NBA, the Spurs outscored the Jazz by 24 in the second half to get a 126-118 win last night. This is their second win without Wembanyama or Vassell in the lineup, both who they hope to return Saturday when they face the Warriors. Tonight, the NBA Cup play resumes with the Rockets taking on the Trailblazers and the Mavericks facing the Nuggets without Luka Doncic, who will miss at least a week with a wrist injury. In Major League Baseball, Shohei Ohtani was named the National League MVP, and Aaron Judge was named the American League MVP. Ohtani led the NL in homers, RBIs, and OPS while adding 59 stolen bases. This is Judge's second MVP and Ohtani's third, and both votes were unanimous. Texas men's basketball held on to beat Syracuse 70-66 after the Orangemen made a run down the stretch. Arthur Kaluma paced the team early and finished with 16 points and 10 rebounds, while Trey Johnson had his worst shooting night of the season, but still sunk key free throws down the stretch and finished with 16 as well. They now move on to the finals of the Legends Classic tonight, playing St. Joseph's, who knocked off Texas Tech in the final seconds to advance. Texas women's soccer also plays tonight, facing number 16 Michigan State in the round of 32 in the NCAA tournament. In college football, Texas faces Kentucky at home tomorrow at 2:30, looking for their 10th win of the season, while elsewhere, number 2 Ohio State takes on number 5 Indiana. Number 9 Ole Miss plays a surging Florida. Number 14 BYU goes against number 21 Arizona State. Number 6 Notre Dame tries to give number 19 Army their first loss, and number 15 Texas A&M heads on the road to play Auburn. In the NFL, the Browns upset the Steelers in the falling snow last night, 24-19. Nick Chubb had 2 touchdowns as Pittsburgh picked up their third loss of the season. Sunday, the Cowboys take on the Commanders in Washington, while the Texans face the Titans in Houston. And that is your Horn headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. I appreciate those. All right, let's get to this story. So last year, obviously, the Connor Stallion story took up the headlines, and it was the fallout from the Connor Stallions sign stealing scandal. Led to an NCAA investigation and suspension of Jim Harbaugh for a few games. They still end up winning the national title. We know that story. And Connor Stallions, after that, he took a defensive coordinator position at Detroit Mumford. It's a high school, a program about I think at school with like 600 kids or something like that. And it wasn't a great school, but then one of their head coach ended up having health issues, and he had a mild stroke or something. And then Connor Stallions took over as the interim head coach. They had like a 1-8 record, so it didn't really matter. And so that kind of got him into the high school ranks, and he went to another high school, Belleville High School, to be an assistant coach there. And this is a program in Michigan. It's a powerhouse program in Michigan that has a lot of big time recruits and a lot of big time players. He apparently became so entrenched in the program that he first of all started consulting on play calling with this high school, Belleville, and eventually, based on multiple reports, he basically started calling plays at Belleville for the playoffs, for their playoff run. Now, Belleville has the number one quarterback in the country, the number one prospect in the country on their team. He is Bryce Underwood, 6'4", 215. Belleville High School's number one national prospect, number one quarterback in the 2025 class, based on three is what I'm looking at right here. And he recently flipped his commitment from LSU to Michigan. And this happened yesterday. And I don't know what like I said, I don't know how much of an influence Connor Stallions is, but the scuttlebutt is, and the word on the street is, that Connor Stallions was a big part of helping flip this commitment from LSU to Michigan. Dude, what? It is crazy. Does Texas football have anybody like Connor Stallions? Tell me, this guy, he put together and created a sophisticated sign-stealing scandal, which helped turn around the program, save Jim Harbaugh's job, which led to them winning a national title. Yes, they had they got the reprimands, of course, and their infractions from that. Of course, that's we get that. And the NCAA investigated and suspended Jim Harbaugh. Still got the national title, though. They didn't take the national title from him. And then he ends up helping them flip the commitment of the number one quarterback in the country to Michigan. Like I said, I don't know how influential he is, but what are the odds? It ain't just a coincidence that he's calling plays for them in the playoffs. And this young man just got there like a year ago, calling plays for them in the playoffs, or not less than a year ago, calling plays for them in the playoffs. And then the young man flips his commitment to his beloved alma mater and the place that he's so devoted to. He wrote a manifesto about Michigan football. I mean, this dude is about to go down in lore and legend as an all-time great for Michigan. Michigan fans gotta love this dude, right? Don't they have to love this guy? No, I'm not saying he did it solely, but he definitely had an influence on it. Come on.
He did. I mean, and whoever's paying him to go do this stuff had a good influence in it too.
Yeah, now that's the other story. Do we have this Dave Portnoy? We played this.
Well, I'm not saying Dave, because we know that he got boosters that paid for him to go do the intel and all that too. I'm saying there's boosters and donors that he knows and he's entangled with.
Oh yeah, because he's from. I mean, it's in Michigan, so I'm saying
that those boosters and donors can say, "Hey, Connor, we need you to go on a recon mission because you can't be in college football anymore. But I'll tell you what, we'll give you some money. Go down here and start working on this recruit."
Oh, I gotcha. Okay, you're saying he gets special assignments from the boosters and the donors.
Yes,
that's what's happening now. He's on special assignment, like he probably was on special assignment then.
Exactly,
and
he's just a guy that some rich people are using to go be the patsy
former
for
military
all this.
man too.
Yeah,
like a military background, so he's all about special assignments now.
Special assignment, you put me
give
on
me a
there,
task. I'll accomplish the damn task now. Ooh, Texas, we need one of these guys. Okay, I want a Connor Stallions for Texas. I'm sorry, I want one.
Hopefully, we've got 2 or 3, and they're just much smarter than him. So we don't know who they are.
He's effective though. He's effective,
but we all know look, I'm sure a lot of teams have guys like this, and we just don't know about them because they're not bumbling idiots who dress on the sidelines like assistant coaches.
I don't know if they're as good as Connor Stallions, man. That's like saying there's lawyers out there that are better than Johnny Cochran. They're just not known. It's like, no, Johnny Cochran was the best. We know he got OJ off. That's why he was damn good. No, Connor Stallions is the best of these. What do we call them? Shady, shady bagman. I don't know whatever it is. I mean, whatever he is. Cool I want one for Texas. We got to give him a cool. Like I'm sure he has some cool.
What was the record of this team? This team was
it was 1-8. When he took over as head coach.
Yeah,
he doesn't really.
He's a bumbling oaf who has stumbled into getting Michigan success.
I don't know, man. It's worked. They won a national title, and we know the science ceiling. It didn't make the difference. It's not the reason they won. It's like the Astros and the Patriots. Yeah. It's not the reason they won, but we know it was an advantage. Come on, now. It was clearly an advantage.
No, it was. I just feel
they probably would have won without it, but it was clearly an advantage.
I feel like they just have this guy who's just paid to be a fall guy at this point. Be like, hey, we need you to go do this, and we're gonna do some shady stuff, but you run in front of the cameras for us real quick.
So you say he's a Forrest Gump of bagmen, like the shady guys. He stumbles on it, and he's like. Wherever he is, he has nothing to do with the actual success of the venture. He's good luck. Well, you know what? No, he's a good luck charm of the program.
He has success because they stick him into situations that no one else would be dumb enough to go do, like stand on the sidelines in someone else's gear. And
that's amazing. I mean, what a great chapter of that story.
By the way, you know there had to be at least one other person, but probably several who have done the same thing and like been on the some team sideline in the gear. And when that story came out, had to be like, no, I've done that.
Don't start researching these.
Don't start looking into that because I totally did that for this other team.
I'm sure of it. And you're right. There are Connor Stallions around the country for the programs. Like I said, but I don't know if they're as good. I don't know if they're as good or if they have as much good fortune. So you said he's not good. He's just stumbling. It's good fortune as Connor Stallions for his program, like for his good fortune.
But
like you said, it's a
like come on, man. He creates this big sign stealing and then gets caught in spectacular fashion. And then he goes, takes over, gets the number 1 recruit, and they're like, "So you're a good coach?" He's like, "The worst."
I don't know the depth of it. I gotta go do more research about the playoff run that this team was on, but that is indeed a true story. Okay, so now the money. Okay, so the world in the street, because LSU fans are upset because they lost, the commitment of the number 1 recruit in that 2025 class. And the word on the street is that it was the NIL dollars, the NIL deal that he was offered. That was more so than Connor Stallions or anything. It was the money that he was offered. We don't know that Matt Moscana, he actually works for ESPN Baton Rouge. He's claiming, his sources say Michigan got to $12 million for him. And I'm assuming that's over a 4-year kind of contract or 4-year period, not like 12 million right off the bat. But that's the belief. And I saw an On3 report that said LSU's offer was 1.5 million a year. If he's at 12 million over 4, then, obviously that would put him at 3 million a year. So they basically that's doubling the offer.
Yeah.
If indeed the report is true that LSU was offering 1.5 million, man, I was born up too early. It's way too early. I mean, I'm not gonna get that much, but Robbie would have got like 50 G's, 100K, just to come crazy. Out and beautiful.
It's just crazy to think that this guy is getting that, and then UNLV's number 24 in the country, and they don't pay them. It's crazy. Like the difference is, hey, to get this guy, it's going to be $3 million a year, or you can take your chances for $0, and you're still the number 24 team in the country right now.
And that's fine. We all thought that, and maybe it'll happen as this becomes obviously more and more. We become more familiar with it, and teams start to adapt to it. The NIL, obviously, the transfer portal, kind of the new landscape of college sports, and revenue sharing is coming too. But we all thought there would be more of a separation between the have and the have-nots, and I don't think we've seen it. We haven't seen it drastically just yet.
No, I think
not yet.
I think what we've seen the most of is that a lot of these recruiting sites have evaluate quarterbacks as well as colleges do, and NFL does, and everybody else does. That there's a lot of, well, they're a 5-star, and you're like, well, does that mean they're going to be good in college? Means nothing. These guys may be complete and utter train wrecks in college, and a 2-star may win a Heisman. Because we may completely misevaluate.
Shadir Sanders, literally went to an HBCU because he did not get any of those big-time offers.
Baker Mayfield was a walk-on at Texas Tech.
Yeah. Nobody knows. I've said for years, nobody knows what the hell they're doing when it comes to quarterback. Nobody knows what the hell they're doing when it comes to quarterback. All right, but there you go. So that is the story. And there are other rumors. They said from 10 to 12 million is what this young man got. And the other rumor is that, remember the audio we played from Dave Portnoy earlier this year? Do we have this audio? The other side of this is that part of the money that came in, the boosters and the donors that got it together, that Dave Portnoy, who is the founder and the head of Barstool, that he may have ponied up the cash to help get this quarterback because he said so. Here's
Michigan. I will be the quarterback guy. You just say, Dave, you go. I'll talk to Sharon. Who do you guys want? Who's in there? Give me a group. I'll go get them. I will sign them $1 million, $2 million, whatever it is.
What's the top?
$3 million.
What if? Are some of them going for more? Wasn't the Nico kid
fine? But I can get a quarterback. We don't have a quarterback. If I don't get the number one,
for 3 though. You can be in the stratosphere.
Yeah, but you don't want to. I'm wondering, is Dave? How are you running this? I want to get a quarterback, or I'm like George Steinbrenner. I will spend any amount of dollars.
No, I'm gonna get us a top 10 quarterback in the portal coming out every year. Top 10 quarterback.
A freshman or a portal.
Okay, I'm interested in maybe doing this for the Badgers too.
And then
I think that we might.
And then, here's
you know what, I'm in.
Well, here's a little bit of the issue.
Okay,
you'll have to find something else because they're doing a weekly spot on Pardon My Take. My guy, not your guy. My guy. That's already been taken. So you're gonna have to find something else for the Wisconsin guy.
Okay.
But like college football recap in a college football hit. So there's 2 things: $3 million marketing agreement. I think that's legal.
So my guy, I'm thinking, my guy is going to be doing one pizza review a week, and he's going to be.
All right, that's enough. That's my favorite point. I think that's legal. It is that's how everybody should react to the new landscape of college sports.
Yes,
I think that's legal. It's I think it is.
I think that's legal, or I don't think you can do that. Are the 2 basic ways.
I don't think you can do that.
You see,
I think that's legal.
Portnoy did put out a statement after the flip, though. He did.
Oh, what did he say?
He said, "I'm getting tons of credit online for flipping Bryce. While I love credit, reality is I played a tiny role. Rest assured, there are Michigan men and women out there making things happen behind the scenes. I've never been more confident that Michigan is poised to dominate in this new world."
Connor freaking, there's a shout out to Connor Stallions behind the scenes, man. And them boosters you talk about. Also, no, the fans they're legit to help flip this kid from LSU. He's obviously he goes to school in Detroit, or at least in Michigan. So he's in their backyard. Apparently, they've been sending buses of fans, Michigan fans. Have been going in busloads to his games and putting up signs, keep Bryce Underwood. He's got another receiver there too, Elijah Dotson, but keep Bryce Underwood home is what the signs basically say.
What the funniest part is, I talked to people I know who are Michigan fans, and after they won the title, they're like, just give us this title. Just give us this one title and we'll be good. And we'll be good and we won't worry about it. And next year, whatever happened, Harbaugh left. Okay, whatever. We're fine. And they didn't realize how bad it was going to be the next year.
Nobody's satisfied
that flip,
with that.
Not even halfway through the season, they were like, okay, we meant not good. We meant in the playoffs still.
Yeah, right. or at least a winning record. Hell, the Bears are just being right. Are they 500 now or something?
I don't even know if they're 500. And that's hard in the Big Ten.
Yeah, exactly. At least have a winning record. They're like, no, we can't. Oh, and CB, before we get to the break here, Shout out to my man CB. I love the little nugget he throws out there. And Chris GB002000. Underwood will be the quarterback when Michigan comes to Austin in 2027.
Well,
boom.
Well.
Full circle.
For the record, the odds of anyone staying anywhere for 3 years is pretty small now. So
fair. That is fair. That's a great. These days, that's a good.
Just saying, because I sent this to my man. I have a good friend who's a Michigan fan. I sent that to him, and I go, better start saving for your tickets now for that game. And then I was like, but the odds of it actually happening, come on now.
That is fair. That's a great point. Nope, I agree with you. That's a great point. Hell, I agree with that.
He's already going to be a bust by then, and they'll pull off on
Sharon Moore will be fired by then, so have a new coach in.
New coach. They'll take away his NIL deal. They'll bring in a transfer, and it'll all happen by then. Yeah, they're 5-5 right now.
They're just they're just like they didn't think like we're just hoping for a winning record. You have a winning record? Oh,
they're 5-5. They have Northwestern this week and Ohio State next week. So if they don't win this week, that winning record is rough.
Damn, that's a hell of a fall from grace. National title to Texas had one of those national title appearance to not making a bowl game. All right, anyway, we come back. We're not talking about that. I'm sorry for bringing that up. I apologize. Should have brought that up. That's low times. We talk about how good Texas is, and we will discuss that in Raj Rad, how good the Longhorns are facing the Kentucky Wildcats. All that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into Rod's rant of the day. I want to start, or at least continue breaking down Texas, Kentucky a little bit more, and talk about who I think Texas has to worry about for Kentucky. Now, they don't have a very good offense. We've discussed this. They're 70th and 71st, I think, rushing offense, 109th in scoring offense, 114th passing offense. So, you don't really have to worry about them. Going against this defense for Texas, I think you don't have to worry about them making a lot of big plays or having explosive plays. They have explosive players. Even if their offense overall isn't really efficient and isn't explosive, they do have players you got to worry about. And Dane Key is one of those guys. He is he's their leading receiver of the offense. The passing game really goes through him. He's a really good player for them. That's somebody that Texas should be worried about. They only have two real weapons that they use in the passing game. Barian Brown is a really explosive wide receiver. He may be one of the fastest wide receivers in the country. And so he's someone you want to make sure you know where he is. Jamarian Wilcox is their most explosive running back. He's averaging, I think 7 yards per pop. They use him in a very boutique way in the running game too. And he's, I think, probably the most explosive rusher. They have the young man Sumo, who is their workhorse back. That's the one who carries most of the load. He's a good player, moves the chains, but doesn't necessarily change the game. Jamarian Wilcox is a guy that can change the game when you get an explosive run. And Barian Brown is that guy. So I think the three guys that concern me the most would be Dane Key, Barian Brown, and Jamarian Wilcox. Those are the three guys, but like I've said before, this offense going up against the Texas defense, which doesn't have a lot of weaknesses, I'm not sure how they're going to try to attack them. I know they'll try to get Vandegrift out of the pocket, and getting Vandegrift out of the pocket, he does make some plays when they're rolling him out, when they got him on the move, and bootlegs and, waggles and things of that nature. So I do think they'll try to move the pocket with him, because that Texas pass rush, you want to try to move the pocket with them, get them on the move. So, and he does have over a 15% explosive pass rate outside the pocket, which is pretty high, damn near 16%. That's third best among the SEC quarterback. So that's something. Quinn actually is pretty good too. Quinn's at 16%, 16.7% actually. If you look at explosive pass rate outside the pocket. Anyway, that's something I think you can expect to see from Kentucky and from Vandegrift. I think you'll see him take shots. I would go with some double moves. I mean, think about how sticky the coverage was for Texas against Arkansas. I mean, Janae Barron's running some of the routes for those wide receivers. Malik Muhammad's a guy that plays real sticky tight coverage. If they can get some time, which that also could be a concern for them because they're 104th in sacks allowed. If they get some time, I would expect them to throw out some double moves too against the Texas defense. I bet they'll have a flea flicker of some kind. I guarantee they'll have some in their bag. But mostly what they want to do is control. That's how they'll get their big plays. I'm talking about how they're going to get explosive plays, chunk yardage plays. But they're mostly going to try to control the game, control the clock. They haven't been able to do that successfully, consistently every game. But if they want to shrink the game, control the clock, and really put their defense in really good positions. So they try to limit turnovers, but they're not necessarily great at it because Vandegrift, 7 interceptions. As Patrick mentioned yesterday, he's fumbled the ball twice, fumbled it away twice. So if Texas can force some turnovers and they can get this team continually in 3-and-out situations where they can't control the ball, at one point that defense of theirs will break. The dam will break. And, Texas, they'll get to go on that run that we talk about, and that's going to be key. So I expect the defense to be able to force 3-and-outs and to force a couple of turnovers. If Texas takes advantage of that, gets some easy points off those turnovers, takes advantage of short fields, then this game could be out of hand early. If not, then Texas offense starts slow, and that's going to be a big factor too. The start is big. We talked about this yesterday. They are top 15 in first quarter defense, first quarter points allowed. That they're top 15 in the country, and in the last 3 games, they're top 10 in the country in points allowed in the first quarter. They're one of the best first quarter defenses in the country, and for Texas, the slow start usually is an indicator of an uglier performance on offense for Texas, and that's why I think the first 2 drives. That's what Patrick talked about. We've been talking about the first 2 drives. I think Sark knows I got to get points. I got to get momentum on those first 2 drives. Got to get some points. Got to get some positivity. And if you don't, usually that leads to a little bit of frustration, and it leads to the slow start. And a slow start for Quinn, we know, means he's going to play with an insecure game instead of a confident game. His pocket presence, all that seems ill affected, and it seems there's an adverse effect when he doesn't start fast. But when they start fast, and go back to the Florida game, when Sark decides to go for it on 4th and 1, because he knows we cannot afford a slow start. Slow starts doom us to ugly games. So watch those first couple of drives. Watch that first quarter for Texas. If it's still mucky and ugly, that's just the kind of brand of football that Kentucky wants to play, and they're good at forcing good teams to play their brand of ugly football.
Yeah,
they did it with Georgia. They did it with Tennessee. They did it with Ole Miss. They're good at it. They want you to play ugly. And if Texas is playing an ugly brand of football, they can win it. Of course, they can win an ugly brand of football. They're a defensive-led team, but that means you might be in for a much more competitive game than a lot of Longhorn fans would expect. All right, we come back. We got What the Stats on the other side right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time for What the Facts, What the Stats here on the show. All right, how about this factoid? I saw this. Drake May's been starting for the New England Patriots. How about this random factoid? I haven't watched a lot of Drake May. I don't know how much anybody has. I don't know how often the Patriots aren't in any national games. Says Drake May says this stat says Drake May is averaging 238 passing yards and 40 rushing yards per game in his first 5 starts. If you look at quarterbacks that have been able to do that, have at least 200 or at least average at least 230 or more passing yards a game and 40 or more rushing yards per game in a season. All right. In NFL history, that list is Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Cam Newton, Kyler Murray, Mike Vick, and Randall Cunningham. That's the list. Drake May might join that list. Like I said, I don't know how many games it would take to qualify, but that's a wild. I mean, that's the list of some of the greatest athletes or dual threat quarterbacks to ever play the position, and Drake May's on the list. Remember, we told you guys he scrambled more than any quarterback in college football during his time in college. Like he scrambled a ton, and he's still doing it. Yeah. He's running a ton. If it ain't there, he abandons, gets the hell out of Dodge, and makes a play with his legs, and been doing a good job for him. Let's talk about the rookie quarterbacks. How about this Bo Nix stat? Bo Nix leads the NFL in total pass attempts of 20 plus air yards. His turnover worthy throw rate on those deep throws is the lowest among 29 qualifying quarterbacks, 2.2%. I did not realize Bo Nix was chunking it deep that much. Usually with a young quarterback, you're trying to get him in a groove. You don't throw it vertical that much. And I didn't even know Denver has those kind of weapons on the outside to chunk it deep that much. So not watching a lot of Denver, got to start watching some more Denver Broncos and Bo Nix. Bo Nix actually is playing relatively well for Denver. And Sean Payton's doing a good job. That's one of those situations that kind of has worked out for everybody. I know Russell Wilson lost last night, but Russell Wilson and him parting ways with Denver, and then Denver getting Sean Payton, seems like now they're starting to find their groove a little bit as a team. All right, there you what the facts, what the stats. I got a couple other more factoids, but we can get to those on the other side. Here's one though that we haven't really talked about. This comes from Pro Football Focus. Alfred Collins is officially the highest graded D tackle this season, according to Pro Football Focus. They got him at 90.1 in their overall grade, and they have missed the highest grade defensive tackle this season. If I'm not mistaken, they had the highest graded defensive tackle last season with Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy. I'm not even sure which one it was. It's one of them dudes. That's a pretty impressive accomplishment. Back-to-back years to have D tackles that are that good and that dominant. Right now, Dane Brugler's got him as a second-round pick.
And man, that's something that they talked about a little bit, I think, in the presser this week or last week. But the change from Bo Davis to Kenny Baker, when there was a lot of people freaked out that they're like, well, we're never getting another big recruit. That is all like Bo Davis. That he with that goes, and to have Kenny Baker in his first year have this success.
He's killing it.
And you're able to sell it. Like Alfred Collins, he was able to build a guy that hadn't been consistent and hadn't been able to do these things into this NFL, top pick. And to be able to do that, I think it really helps you in recruiting. And really, I think it makes you as a fan be a lot happier with where you feel like this D line is at right now, that you were really worried with Bo Davis leaving, that it was going to be that could take a huge hit, and what Kenny Baker's done and what that defense has done, that's huge.
I agree. We're not giving Kenny Baker enough props.
No, I agree.
I think we mentioned him, but you're right. Especially with all the criticism that he didn't have the resume and who is this guy? You can't go from Bo Davis to this, unknown.
We'll never get another top recruit.
No. And now all he's got to do is trot out there. Look what I did for Alfred Collins, because this is a guy that I had him as a guy getting drafted, but not as a second-round pick, mid-round pick at best. from what he had. But now you got the consistency in his game. We always saw the flashes, but now the consistency in his game too. He's been a game wrecker the last 2 games, like literally just wrecking game plans out there. Beat a double team last game to get a sack. And that play that I guarantee that'll be in his draft highlight reel. You ever see a play and you go like, oh, that's gonna be in his draft highlight reel. That forced fumble in the Arkansas game, guarantee you they go to empty formation. He is rushing and immediately has the situational awareness to know my spidey sense, something's off here. Why the hell why do I have such an easy path to the quarterback? Something's off. Something's off. So it's looking around and realizes, oh, all the linemen are leaving. Okay, damn, screen goes off. This is all happening in milliseconds for him. Screen, then sees the screen, sees the wide receiver catch the tunnel screen, and then is able to turn and react and have the length and the athleticism to be able to catch the guy downfield, or track him downfield, and then punch the ball out. I mean, that was a hell of a play. I'm trying to think that might be it. I don't know if he's got a better play this year. He's got some good ones, but that was a
and I mean, because you're going to get some of those tips that he's got on the highlight reel too.
Oh yeah,
tips for interceptions, because that's so big in today's game. Man, if you can't get there, get your hands up, and if you're able to.
Chris Jones does that a lot.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's a lot, but that's I just as good as Alfred Collins is playing, and I'm so happy for him. I think it's worth mentioning Kenny Baker, because he was not necessarily thought of in the terms of what he's looked at now, and it's a great sign for Texas.
Well said. I agree with you 100%. Definitely to give him some props, man, because he came in highly criticized, and the D line, the interior D line has looked really good. The guys they brought, and he's coaching D line and D ends in pass rushing.
Yeah,
like all D line. So it ain't just he's doing interior and on the outside. And the pass rushing ability is definitely, in my opinion, their pass rushing prowess has improved. And remember, it was I'm trying to think of which player it was. It was either Collins or Broughton that said that what's the difference? They were asked what's the difference between Bo Davis and Kenny Baker, and they said like technical precision. Like there is about technique.
Yeah,
making sure your technique is actually as buttoned up and as pristine as you can get it. You want your technique, hand placement, footwork, all that. He's really, really, meticulous about the technique. And he said, Bo Davis, a coach, but some coaches are dialed in on some of those details more than other coaches. I've been with those coaches. Coach Akina was dialed in on little details about stuff like that. And to me, it turns you into a player that you start to recognize the little faults in your game, right? The little liabilities in your game that way. And you start to see the world like the coach does. And it, like I said, the light went off for me. And I think because everybody's motivated differently and everybody learns differently. I think for Alfred Collins, it definitely helped him. Like the light went off for him. He figured it out. Okay, this is what I need to do to beat double team. This is what I got to do. And my man CJ Vogel tells a great story about it. That when he first met Alfred Collins, it was down in like one of those all-star games down in San Antonio. Went down there to see him, and he was just getting mashed by like his peers. But these are the all-stars from around the country and around the region who are the best. You see young prospects going into college, and he was just getting whipped. And this dude, he's 6'5", 280 something. And then CJ said he went over and asked me, he's like, man, what's up? What's going on? Everything all right? He's like, I got to get my technique and my fundamentals are just bad. Like it's getting me beat. Like I have all the raw materials. I got the strength. I got the speed, but I've been so dominant. He's so dominant basically in high school that he didn't need to brush up on technique and fundamentals. And then as he got to the higher level, that's all he needed to do was focus on the technique and fundamentals, because the size and all the raw materials for strength, that stuff was God given for him.
Yeah.
And I think now he has a coach that focuses on that more. And for him, it has helped his evolution and development as a player a lot more.
Man, you talk about consistency. One of his biggest flaws, consistency for Alfred Collins. And you say consistency. Can he be consistent? That's technique. That's doing the same thing. So you're not in one play coming in and getting bumped and your footwork's gone. or you line up and you move and you don't put your hand back down right. Just little stuff that guys are just missing out on. And now that he's got that stuff shored up, it makes everything so much more consistent.
It's a great point. The repetition, and now you're right. He always comes back to it. You don't let your opponents, you don't let any of your opponents' technique or their game plan or their approach affect your technique.
Yeah.
All right, that because you're consistent with that, and you're right. That's probably why we have now the consistency in his game. All right, there you go. What the facts, what the stats. We come back. We have we'll talk about the game last night. We'll get into the Steelers and their loss to the Browns. We'll also dive into some other NFL news, notes, and nuggets. We got to talk Texans coming up. We'll also get into the Cowboys just a little bit. They're still playing ball, even though Dak's not there, even though there's a bad team. We'll talk about the Dallas Cowboys a little bit, and we'll get into the Texas Kentucky matchup. We'll go behind the burnt orange curtain. All that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Local and Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a Freak Flag Feel Good Fake It Till You Make It. Ric Flair, 512 Football Friday edition of the Rodcast. And that's when my co-host, the Idillionaire, plays jams from local bands and artists, very talented human beings that you have a chance to catch live right here in the ATX. Who are jamming right now, Patrick?
This is Big Wise Brass Band, and they're playing tonight at Antone's. Going to be a fun bill. My buddies in Graffiti Funk are opening up that show. They're really good as well. If you love horns and funk and soul and all that, you want to go check out that show tonight at Antone's.
Man, that's pretty cool. How many people are in this band?
A lot of horns.
Like how it sounds like there's just a lot of horns.
There's a good amount. You get horns because then you got to get the rest of the band. But yeah, it's a lot of horns in this band right here.
Man, okay, yeah.
So there'll be a lot of people on stage throughout the night.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. Like, man, how many folks do they have there at one time? It does sound fantastic, though. I mean, that sounds like a hell of a show. All right, so there you go. What's the name of the band again?
Big Wise Brass Band.
Big Wise Brass
and
Band.
WY is how you spell that.
Okay. I don't know. Okay, yeah. I've been to some places where a brass band has been playing, like just some events and stuff like that. And I always wonder if that was them. I mean, they sound that sound is very familiar, and you don't have a lot of brass bands like that. Like just
not anymore.
There's just not a lot of them out there. I know that for a fact. But great stuff there. That's why we love 512 Friday, broadening our horizons. We also love the topic for the big fat poll of the day that is already posted for you at the Horn ATX on X. Patrick, what is the topic for the big fat poll of the day?
Big fat poll of the day: how many points will Texas score against Kentucky? Right now, we got 25-34 leading the way with 63%. That's where Rod and I both are. 35 plus has got 24% of the votes, 12% for 15-24, and then a vote for a 0-14.
Yeah, 0-14.
One of them Stoops must have got on here.
I was about to say, if that's the case, yeah, that will be. I'll bring the panic button in if that's the case. If they score 0-14 points, I'll bring the panic button in. As long as they score in the high 20s, and they should score in the high 20s. Yeah. But I think that makes your defense is good enough to hold a team. I don't see a team scoring more than 17 points, or this team scoring more than 13. I don't ski them. I haven't given you my score prediction in terms of theirs. I told you I think Texas will score 30. I think they score. Oh man. Should I give them 13? I feel like that might be generous.
But it all depends on what Texas scores, right? Because if Texas is up, if Texas scores 35, 40 points, then you give them 13 pretty easy. Because you say, well, down the stretch, you play a little bit looser on defense, and they're able to get a couple more plays.
I don't want to disrespect the defense. Yeah, you're right. No, you're right.
But if the defense is needed to play tight defense and they're calling plays to stop them, then 10 seems high. Like 10 seems like your kind of threshold.
Yeah. Yes, good. Yeah, I will say maybe right now I'm thinking 13. I don't want to be disrespectful to either side. I won't be disrespectful to the Texas defense. I want to respect Kentucky a little bit, but their offense is just not good.
No.
It's just not a very good offense. They're 71st in rushing offense, 79th in yards per carry, 109th in scoring offense, 114th in passing offense, 107th in total offense, 91st in giveaways, 104th in sacks allowed. They're 95th in third down conversion rate. And they're 108th in touchdown percentage in the red zone, 82nd in 20-plus yard plays. I mean, they're not a very good offense.
So wait, we're saying under 20 points is panic button for Texas. Do you have a panic button number for the Texans?
Oh,
against Tennessee?
No, because it's the NFL.
L'Jarius Sneed, I think, is going to be out too for that defense.
Yeah, I don't. For the Texans, it's really about how the offensive line looks, the pass protection, and how often we're in third and long and what second half scoring. I got three things I look for now with the Texans that I panic about, that I freak out about. Okay. It's third and long situations. It is pass protection, because C.J. Stroud, was one of the most hit quarterbacks in the league and one of the more pressured quarterbacks in the league. And they're consistently, they average third and long. They average third and 8+ yards to gain, which is a problem. And the second half scoring, and they're great in the first half. And in the second half, they're bottom of the league when it comes to second half scoring. That's a problem. Last week they broke the streak. They had I believe a 4-game streak of not scoring a touchdown in the second half, and they finally broke that streak last week against the Dallas Cowboys. I got a 3-game kind of checklist for the Texans. Yeah, that's 3-item checklist that I try to get to for the Texans.
And we kind of missed the panic button on the Cowboys. That was just.
Well,
we kind of missed it because it went down. It was kind of there, and then Dak got hurt, and you're like, well, now the wheels are off.
I think we were talking about how bad the rush defense was and how bad the rush. I remember, I don't know if it's a panic button, but I remember saying you have the worst rush offense and the worst rush defense in the league. And I remember at the time we were like, I don't know, a month in, and I was like, you can't win games like that.
No.
You're not gonna be a 12-win team like that.
But
you might be a 9-win team like that.
I think it was because Dak got hurt before the trade deadline, so we still had hope that they were going to make a move. So we're like, well, you can bring in a couple people and it would make it, but then Dak got hurt, and you're like, well, now you don't bring anybody in. So there was never really a panic button time because once you panic button, you're like, it's over. It's now over. Yeah. You had the opportunity, and now Dak went down, and it's kind of over. So there was never really that moment of.
It happened too fast.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm saying, in one
week,
the
Steelers. I remember they beat the Steelers, and we were like, okay, all right, now you got some hope there. You beat the Steelers. Steelers turned out to be we'll get into the Steelers, but Steelers are inconsistent. They've lost to a lot of good teams and have beaten a lot of good teams, but lost to bad teams. But yeah, you might be right about that. I don't know if we had time to. It happened very quickly.
It was the Dak injury. Dak injury was over.
Well, then you had the Micah injury.
Yeah.
Right. You had that rash of injuries that really
it was over.
Yeah, exactly. Like there were just too many key players that went down for you.
Yeah.
In a stretch when you weren't that good anyway. As even Jerry said, you weren't good even with these players.
Exactly.
And then those players went down. You were struggling to win games.
Do you do the same arithmetic as me?
Yes. And then you lost your best players and your most important players. And you're right. We didn't have time to sound the alarm. They went off the cliff.
Yeah.
But there were warning signs. There were plenty of warning signs that it was going to happen. That's damn sure for the Cowboys. All right, we'll talk a little bit more Texans too, because I want to get into their matchup this weekend with the Titans. We'll talk about that. Before we do and get into last night's game as well, before we do that, though, let's hit these horn headlines because we have not yet been updated, educated, and informed. So let's get updated, educated, and informed with the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the horn headlines.
All right, your horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the NBA, the Spurs outscored the Jazz by 24 in the second half to get a 126-118 win last night. This is their second win without Wembanyama or Vassell in the lineup, both who they hope returns on Saturday when they face the Warriors. Tonight, the NBA Cup play resumes with the Rockets taking on the Trailblazers and the Mavericks facing the Nuggets without Luka Doncic, who will miss at least a week with a wrist injury. In Major League Baseball, Shohei Ohtani was named the National League MVP, and Aaron Judge was named the American League MVP. Ohtani led the NL in homers, RBIs, and OPS while adding 59 stolen bases. This is Judge's second MVP and Ohtani's third, and both votes were unanimous. Texas men's basketball held on to beat Syracuse 70-66 after the Orangemen made a run down the stretch. Arthur Kaluma paced the team early and finished with 16 points and 10 rebounds. While Trey Johnson had his worst shooting night of the season, but still sunk key free throws down the stretch and finished with 16 as well. They now move on to the finals of the Legends Classic tonight, playing St. Joseph's, who knocked off Texas Tech in the final seconds to advance. Texas women's soccer also plays today, facing number 16 Michigan State in the round of 32 in the NCAA tournament. In college football, Texas faces Kentucky at home tomorrow at 2:30, looking for their 10th win of the season. While elsewhere, number 2 Ohio State takes on number 5 Indiana. Number 9 Ole Miss plays a surging Florida. Number 14 BYU goes against number 21 Arizona State. Number 6 Notre Dame tries to give number 19 Army their first loss. And number 15 Texas A&M heads on the road to play Auburn. In the NFL, the Browns upset the Steelers in the falling snow last night, 24-19. Nick Chubb had 2 touchdowns as Pittsburgh picked up their third loss of the season. And Sunday, the Cowboys take on the Commanders in Washington, while Texans face the Titans in Houston. And that is your horn headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the horn headlines. Appreciate those. We were just talking about the Texans. One thing I will say about that Texans-Titans matchup that's coming this weekend, the Titans got a good rush defense. I mean, their rush defense, it's because of T'Vondre Sweat, too. It's a big part of it, actually. And matter of fact, I saw a quote where D'Amico gave some props to T'Vondre Sweat. He said that the Tennessee front, led by Simmons and Sweat, make it tough to run the ball. Said it's the strength of their defense. It's their rush defense because of Sweat in the middle of it. And you're right there. You look at run stuff rate. They have the best run stuff rate in the league. Stuff rate is when you stop a run at the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage. How many of your runs are stopped at or for a loss, at the line of scrimmage or for a loss? And damn near 25% of the rushes against the Titans are stuffed. That's a Sweat stat. That's having, one of the biggest human beings in the league at D tackle for you. So it's working out real. I mean, we talked about how Tennessee was building that defense with a lot of unique freaks. Their success rate against the run, 5th best success rate against the run, and their EPA per attempt allowed is 7th best. It's legit a top 5 rush defense. So let's just assume, and they run a lot of light boxes. Why wouldn't you? You got T'Vondre Sweat. He's 2 humans in one. So you know what I mean? You can win the numbers advantage with T'Vondre Sweat up there all the time, and with a guy like Simmons who demand a double team. So they put pressure on with their front 4, and they put a lot on their front 4 just to stop the run and to pressure the opposing quarterback too. So it actually, matchup wise for the Texans, we'll see if they can hold Joe Mixon and force CJ to the Texans to be over reliant on CJ Stroud. That might be problematic. Because since week 6, now you got Nico back, so that's the big thing. You can be over reliant on CJ with Nico there because he's got his number one guy who he looks for on 3rd and long, which they average 3rd and long in yards to gain on 3rd downs, or it's the red zone, or if he's got escape pressure because he's been pressured over 40% of his dropbacks in 4 of the last 5 games, actually a 4-game stretch. Last game versus the Cowboys was the first game that he wasn't, in the last 5, that he wasn't pressured at least 40% of the time. So whether he's got to scramble and abandon the pocket and look for someone in scramble drill, he's looking for Nico. And I think since Nico went down, that's why we've seen some of his stats statistically in those areas regress. And in this game, I'm confident that if they got to go to the Save Us CJ model and the Save Us CJ recipe, they'll be fine. Bobby Slowick is probably my 4th thing on the checklist. When I touch my checklist, I watch with the Texans pass protection. I watch second half scoring. All right. And watch, of course, pass protection 3rd and longs. Also watch Bobby Slowick's play calling on early downs. What's he doing on early downs? Is there anything creative happening on early downs with the Texans to get them into 3rd and manageable and out of the 3rd and long? So maybe that's connected to my 3rd and long item on the checklist for the Texans. So they're going to beat the Titans, but how does it look? And do they improve in those key areas?
Yeah.
That's the issue for the Texans.
And you get L'Jarius Sneed's out again. He's been out for a little while. He's has not practiced this week. They were hoping maybe he would come back for this game, but it doesn't look like he's coming back. That helps you out in throwing the ball as well. Take out one of their top DBs. And it looks like Lassiter is ready to come back. He's been full practices the last 2 days. Will Anderson has been light practices last 2 days. Stingley's been light practices as well. Azeez Al-Shaair light practices. Danico Autry, though, has not been practicing. So maybe lose him. So
yeah, and you got kind of accustomed to not having him because he didn't start the season.
Yeah, but you just want to see that full force offense, that full force defensive line. You haven't really seen it yet.
And they're still one of the league leaders in pressures. They're still, top 5 in takeaways right now for the Texans. I believe they are 5th, I think, last time I looked at it. And they lead the NFL in havoc plays. Oh, sorry, the defense is 2nd in takeaways. I apologize. But they lead the NFL in havoc plays, too. And this is bad news for the Titans. So we're talking about the matchup. They've turned the ball over on almost 16% of their drives, 30th in the NFL. So they turn the ball over a lot. Texans, they take away the football a lot. That's a bad match. Bad matchup, I should say, for the Tennessee Titans. All right, game last night. It's weird. I don't know really what's going on with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I brought these stats up earlier. I don't even know how it's possible, but it is. The Steelers against good teams, basically against teams who are above 500, winning teams with a winning record. They are 5-0 this season, and they are 3-3 versus teams with a losing record. Their losses, they lost to the Cowboys. We just brought that up. They lost to the Cowboys earlier this year. They lost to the Joe Flacco mostly led Colts, which is also crazy. And don't forget, this Browns team is a Browns team that has now snapped 5-game winning streaks for 2 teams in the division. They snapped the Ravens 5-game win streak as well. This is a 3-win team that's basically been able to snap 2 5-game win streaks in the same season. The stat on that is the 2024 Browns are the only team since the 1970 merger to be below 500 and snap 2 divisional opponents 5-game win streaks in the same season. Like it's crazy. Like you really could not predict. Now the weather had a lot to do with that, but we told you going into the game when Pittsburgh had to travel to Cleveland, they were 1-4-1 since 2018. Now 1-5-1 since 2018, having to travel to Cleveland to play in that division. That division is highly unpredictable. It's crazy. The Steelers have the Ravens number, and for some reason at home, the Browns seem to have the Steelers number. I have no idea what's going on in that rivalry. It's crazy. Division rivalries they're so intimate and so much familiarity. It's really tough to predict how teams play each other, and then you're built to conquer your ecosystem. You should be built to be an apex predator in your ecosystem. Every division is a little bit different. And that also has a big part to it because teams are drafting players to counter and to match up with what you do, especially if you're one of the best teams in that division. And I mean, the Steelers and the Ravens, it's very interesting, like how those teams, they match up with one another and they match up really well. Because even the Bengals play the Ravens really tight. And the Bengals are not a good team and the Ravens are a great team. The margin, the difference of like competition level in that division is it's wild how close it is. I do think that since they turned into pretty much a football in a snow globe last night, I do think they gave Jameis Winston a bit of an advantage. I talked about this earlier. Jameis Winston last night, 13 of 21 for 122 yards and an interception when he wasn't on the run. When he was just a stationary passer, he was 13 of 21 for 122 yards and interception. When he was on the run, basically kind of playing some backyard football, he was 5 of 6 for 97 yards in those crazy conditions. I said this earlier. Jameis Winston has always had a backyard element to his game. That's partly why he hasn't worked as a franchise quarterback, because there's a lot of risk in his game because he's got some backyard football in him. He's got some gunslinger in him. He'll throw it. If he sees it, he'll throw it. And in that game, I think the snow and the wintry mix, it actually helped Jameis because it brought them back to it. The game plans were thrown out the window, and it brought them back to more of a backyard football element, a sandlot football element to his game, and it worked out. I think Jameis was actually better suited in those conditions. It was his first snow game too, by the way, but because of his very chaotic game, which is a very high risk, high reward game, in those conditions, everything's high risk, high reward. I think Jameis was able to perform, and he did. He came in clutch, especially on that. Now you could make the argument that Mike Tomlin helped him out a little bit. Remember, Mike Tomlin accepted that penalty when the Steelers were up 19-18. It was 4th and 1. Accepted the penalty, made it 3rd and 6. That was Jameis Winston's first third down conversion of the night, and he converted it, leading to the go-ahead touchdown, which later ended up being their winning touchdown. And basically, for Mike Tomlin, that was one questionable decision. The other questionable decision, in my opinion, by Mike Tomlin, had to be some of the clock management in that game. And you remember there was a point in that game where right before the it was right before like a 2-minute. It was right before the 2-minute 2-minute penalty, the 2-minute break, and they wasted a second timeout like right before that. It was a penalty on the play before. Then it was the 2-minute warning, and then they took a timeout, and it really make sense. It was kind of a wasted timeout, if you will, that they could have used later on. That was a question. That was something that was a bit questionable. Also, the Justin Fields 3rd and 4. Remember, he's in the game on the second to last drive for Pittsburgh, and they're in a 3rd and 4 situation. I thought they'd put Russell Wilson back in the game for the 3rd and 4, and they didn't. It was like 3.5 minutes left in the game, and they let Justin Fields just throw a deep pass, incomplete down the field, stop the clock with 3:29 left. And, Russell Wilson, like I said, Justin Fields actually made some plays in the game. He had a 30-yard run in that game that really gave the offense a bit of a boost. He came in earlier and had he was roughed, and they're roughing the passer call that also led to a touchdown on that drive. So he was adding a spark. Not saying he wasn't adding a spark at all, but Russell Wilson started the game 11 of 11 for 147 yards. He did have he had a fumble in that game too, but the Steelers were basically kind of stuck offensively. They put in Justin Fields, provided a bit of a spark, but on 3rd down, oh man, Russell Wilson was 11 of 12. Yeah. On 3rd down, he was 11 of 12, 198 yards and a touchdown. You had the most important 3rd down of the game, and you chose to go with Justin Fields. Not hating on Justin Fields, but Russell Wilson was, in my opinion, a better option on that play. So a couple of game management decisions by Mike Tomlin, who I like. I love Mike Tomlin. I think he's a great coach. I think it might have cost the Steelers a chance to win that game, unfortunately, for the Steelers. So we'll talk about the NFL a little bit more, because I want to get into some of the other big games coming up this weekend. We also got some big college football games coming up that we'll dive into coming up in the 9 o'clock hour as well. But an unlikely win for the Cleveland Browns. I just didn't see that happening. I remember I said I thought the Steelers would end up 9-3, and that would be the case, but did not see that being the case. 9-2, actually, I thought they would be. Not the case for the Pittsburgh Steelers. How about this stat, though, about how unlikely the win is for the Cleveland Browns? So in this game for the Cleveland Browns, they're the first team in NFL history to commit 3 turnovers in a game, to commit at least 3 turnovers, have at least 8 penalties, convert no more than 1 3rd down. Guys, they were 1 of 10 on 3rd downs. And have under 25 minutes time of possession, and still win a game. Oh, they also blew a 12-point 4th quarter lead and still win the game. First team in history to do that. Lost the turnover battle by 2, failed to convert even 2 3rd downs, only 1 of 10. They were outgained actually in this game too. Crazy, wild game, of course, in snowy, wintry conditions. And didn't score a return touchdown. Usually teams who win a game and they're that bad on 3rd downs, converting, losing the turnover battle too, there's like a non-offensive touchdown in there. There was no non-offensive touchdown. And there's just the likelihood of them winning that game was very, very low. I mean, minuscule. And they found a way to pull it out. So we got to give Jameis Winston some props for that, man. Ended up being clutch when they needed him. All right. And maybe Jameis Winston will be one of those stopgap stories we hear about, that a team decides to invest in him as a stopgap quarterback while they figure out who their quarterback's going to be. And we've seen those quarterbacks go from stopgap to potential franchise quarterbacks, or at least from stopgap quarterbacks to being the potential or the temporary franchise quarterback. We saw it with Baker Mayfield, saw it with Jared Goff, saw it with Geno Smith. Hell, I think Jameis Winston possibly could be that guy, because they're certainly not excited about going back to Deshaun Watson. I know Deshaun Watson's going to be the guy just because of the money that they've invested in him, but I think ultimately the Browns will start their exit strategy for Deshaun Watson, and maybe Jameis Winston can be a part of it. The players like him, the fans like him, the media likes him. While you're going to be taking those blows, he'd be a good guy, a good face for it, because he's, like I said, he's upbeat. He knows how to handle the media. He's unintentionally funny. while you're trying to figure out who your next quarterback's going to be, maybe Jameis can be the stopgap until you figure it out. All right, we come back. We got Texas Longhorn football to get into. We'll go behind the burnt orange curtain. We'll talk Texas, Kentucky, and hear from Steve Sarkisian about senior night, farewell night, also about the upcoming opponent, the Kentucky Wildcats, and their coaching staff a little bit too. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Let's get to some Texas football conversations here from Steve Sarkisian. He had his Zoom call, his Zoom availability that he has every Thursday. And was talking about their upcoming opponent, the Kentucky Wildcats. But a lot of talk about Quinn Ewers this week and his inconsistent play and whether he is capable of playing at a championship level. So a lot of Longhorn fans have been a bit anxious, a bit concerned about Quinn Ewers' play. But here's Sark talking about the benefits of a third-year starting quarterback and what it means to have a third-year veteran, experienced quarterback like Quinn in the system, which I think a lot of Longhorn fans right now are taking for granted. Here's Sark.
Well, for me, it's not so unique to me as maybe it is around the country. Like the guys that have really come into our programs, whether it's been here or the other stops that we've had, we've kind of had that continuity with the players, whether they were backups early on in their career, then became starters, or were starters and remain starters. And so I enjoy that process because I think you learn and grow with that person as we evolve as an offense, as his game continues to develop and you start to try to play to their strengths and what they do well. You start to feel their presence and their leadership. And I think that's with Quinn exactly what it's been, from where he was year one to where he is today, to the rapport he has with his teammates, to the mental and physical toughness he exudes. For us, I think is one that's admired in the locker room. And so I think there wasn't a more fitting play for him than the 4th and 2 last week against Arkansas, where we called a zone read with him. And, he decides to try to run the safety over to get the first down to seal the victory. And I just think that's who Quinn is. And a lot of times that doesn't come out in kind of his personality off the field, but internally we know the competitive nature that he has. And so for that to play out that way, I thought was a really cool moment. It was a cool moment to see him show some excitement. And obviously all of us on the sidelines were excited as well. So I've been proud of Quinn. I really feel like he's as healthy as he's been now today that he was earlier in the season. And that's always the challenge of playing quarterback and playing football in general. November, you're generally not healthy. And he obviously endured a pretty tough injury early on, but is making some really big plays for us at critical moments.
All right. Yeah. And you just need Quinn to take care of the football and make good decisions under pressure. That's what they need Quinn to do. He did a good job of taking care of the football versus Arkansas. Did not have any turnovers. Big part of that game. If you're going to win with defense, can't put your defense in a compromising situation and give up short fields or, obviously give up easy points. And as long as you don't do that, make the big mistake. I do think Texas right now, with this current, construction of it, I do think they can compete for a championship. If Quinn gets on a heater, then it's all bets are off. If we ever get Quinn playing back to the level of he played versus Michigan, and in Florida, he was at that Florida versus Florida, he was, playing at a high level. That might have been the second best we've seen Quinn look all year. The Florida game. I know he missed a couple of throws here and there, but I mean, the man was, I think playing at a really high level. He had a career high in touchdown passes in that game. So if you get Quinn playing, at that level, then I think Texas is a dangerous threat to the rest of college football. All right, let's get to one of the other comments from Sark. He talked about practice a little bit, and this might be a good sign for Texas. Apparently, they having some fights in practice. Things are getting a little bit feisty. Sark said. Here's Sark talking about the mood at practice and how he likes it.
Yeah, feisty was good. I'm like, okay, let's let this go for a minute, because I think, like I said, in November, I think so many teams it can feel monotonous to the players. And clearly for our guys, it was not. They were competing, and some young players that were competing with older players. And I thought that was a great sign for us,
It's a good sign. Because usually guys get worn out late in the season. They're just trying to go through the motions at practice. You don't want to go through the motions at practice. Not this late in the season. No. You don't want any of those. Sometimes for rivalry week, it won't be a concern. I mean, Texas A&M, everybody gets it. Big games, everybody gets it. For Kentucky, that's the formula for a trap game. gosh, just going through the motions at practice, going through a lull. I wouldn't doubt if it was maybe a veteran guy who saw maybe they were kind of going through the motions and it's like, all right, I need to go pick a fight.
Yeah.
Do something.
Yeah. It seemed like, because they said late in Thursday's practice or Tuesday's practice and then rolled into Wednesdays. And then Wednesday was a real feisty one. But it was, they're like, I wouldn't surprise me at all if some of the veteran players were like, man, young guys are starting to slack off a little bit. They're falling into the trap game stuff. And we could tell them, or we could just go call them out on the field.
Show them right now,
and just go show them and just go take it to them real quick. And maybe that'll pick them up and that'll make us, because we can't get better. You always talk about you want to go against wide receiver one because that's how you can get better. If you're a veteran and you're in the ones and you're going against a younger guy and he's not giving you a challenge, how am I supposed to get better? How am I supposed to be ready to play on Saturday if you ain't going to give it to me? So I'll go tell coach to put somebody else in if you don't want to play.
No, I love that. And I love that it carried over too, because to me that says it might have started and then guys still had a little chip on their shoulder the next day. Like, hold on, I still got something I got to prove. I like that. I think it's a really good sign for Texas this late in the season. Let's hear from start talking about their upcoming opponent. I have a lot of respect for this Kentucky defense. I've said that multiple times. I think this group can play a little bit. Here start talking about when Kentucky plays well, how they lead with the defense, and we've seen that in a big upset over Ole Miss this season. But here start talking about what makes Kentucky such a dangerous out.
Well, they just play really good defense. They minimize the explosive plays. They can bog you down. I think Ole Miss scored 17 points against them. I think Georgia scored 13 points against them. I think Tennessee got a couple scores late to get to 28. And so they can kind of control the game that way. And then offensively, they're a run first offense that can control the clock. And then they get yards in the return game, and that both returners are excellent players. And so you've got to play sound football against them. We've got to find explosive plays on the offensive side of the ball. We got to minimize the return yards. And then we got to make sure that we get off the field on defense, that if they start bleeding the clock because they're getting third down conversions and extending drives, that then the game can get shortened. And now you're in one of those types of games in the fourth quarter with them. So, we've got a work cut out for us for sure.
Seems like Sark's got respect for that defense. They're really good at forcing good teams to play their ugly brand of football. As he just mentioned there, Georgia, Tennessee, Ole Miss. They're good at forcing teams to play that ugly brand of football. And if Texas plays an ugly brand of football, it's going to be close. And their defense, I'm sure, of course, will make sure that Texas is victorious, but maybe a little too close for comfort. And I think that's where Longhorn fans start to get a little bit anxious about things. The last cut here that wanted to get to, Sark talked about the trap game all the time, right? And this was the perfect trap game in between two of your rivals that you have to go on the road to play in a big game coming up on the horizon against Texas A&M. Here is Sark talking about the players' motivation. Do you have to get the players pumped up? Do you have to get them motivated for this game potentially because it's in between two rival games? Here's Sark when he was asked about pumping up the players and how he doesn't have to do much to motivate these guys.
Yeah, I mean, I love that they're self-motivated that way. And like I said, Wednesday, really Tuesday, when they started getting feisty, and then into Wednesday, I in a weird way, I kind of enjoyed it. I don't know if that's a little sick of me to think that, but I kind of enjoyed that because to your point that they're still very hungry. So the same hunger that I talked about all off season and in training camp, this group is still very hungry. But when we lost the Georgia game, we put ourselves back in the same scenario that we were in a year ago. And if you recall, a year ago, senior night, we were playing Tech. We had to win that game to get into the Big 12 championship game, the way the tiebreaker was going to fall. And so we've been in this scenario before. It hasn't been new to where, okay, now we have to go take care of our business, because 2 years ago, we senior night, we played Baylor and beat them. And then we had to sit on the couch and watch Kansas play Kansas State and cheer for the Jayhawks, because if they would have won, we could have got into the Big 12 championship game, and K-State beat them. And so we just don't want to put ourselves in position where we're relying on anybody else to help us, that we can control our own destiny. And the best way to do that is to focus on it one game at a time. Be present today, be where your feet are, focus on the task at hand, and not get caught up looking too far down the road. Just focus on what's right in front of us.
All right, there you go. He likes the guys who are getting feisty, and you shouldn't have to at this point when you control your own destiny like this, and you have all of the power to accomplish, or at least you have it well within your power and your control to accomplish all that you have set out to achieve this season. Yeah, I mean, that should be motivation stuff, especially with a group like Texas with a good crop of a good core of leadership. All right, we come back. We got off the record on the other side. Wacky wild stories from the sports world and beyond, and we'll dive into that when we dive into off the record on the other side, right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, we didn't talk about this as it relates to the Pittsburgh Steelers-Browns games last night, with the Browns getting the win in the wintry mix there in Cleveland. But on the last play, it was a Hail Mary, unsuccessful Hail Mary for Pittsburgh. And on that Hail Mary play, George Pickens, the wide receiver for Pittsburgh, and Greg Newsome, the defensive back for the Browns, they got into it. Like in the as the Hail Mary was as it was descending, they got into it and were basically wrestling and kind of brawling into the stands. Like it actually ended up like at the at the back of the end zone there. It actually went into the stands a little bit, and the wall behind the end zone, and had to be broken up by officials and stadium personnel after the play was over. Crazy stuff. And Greg Newsome came out later, or at least after the game, and said he was trying to do a WrestleMania with me the whole time. So that's what happened at the end. Yeah, he's a fake tough guy. He does a lot of that, the antics and stuff. Yeah, he didn't even go up for the ball. He didn't go up for the ball. He was not worried about the ball at all. He literally was just worried about, I don't know, getting into it with Newsome. That was pretty wild. I don't know if the coach is like that. It's like, hey, man, your job is to go for the – his job is to distract you from the – he did a good job. He did his job. You didn't do your job. Your job is to at least go compete for the football. You didn't do that. You were too busy fighting him on the side. So,
no, I mean, that's
crazy.
The Steelers know how to get kind of head case wide receivers.
They do.
They know how to get those head case wide receivers. And
what is that?
This feels like another – Pickens has always been that guy, because Pickens – like there will be plenty of times where you'll see like a run play and it'll be like a 3rd and 4 and it's a run play. We all know in a 3rd and 3 or something, it's a run play and they run up the middle for like 5 yards. And then you see like down the field, Pickens and a guy just fighting. Like it happens all the time with George Pickens. He gets into fights like that. He's also the guy that said he wasn't going to block downfield because he's not going to get rolled up on, but he'll get into fights downfield, no problem. Just easy.
Yeah, it's like he doesn't want to block, but he likes to fight. Likes to fight guy.
Yeah, it's an interesting. Yeah, he does not shy away from what he feels at any given point, and I think that does not bode well for him at all times.
That's a great point though that you just made though about the Steelers and them being attracted to diva wide receivers and kind of head case wide receivers. What is it about that organization? I mean, they're probably the most stable organization, if not one of the most stable in all of sports, definitely in the NFL. And you got Antonio Brown. You got Pickens is in that conversation.
I mean, Deontay
Santonio
Johnson
Holmes
wasn't necessarily the most same guy either.
Yeah.
He wasn't kind
Santonio
of a diva.
Holmes, remember they ended up getting rid of him. He was a Super Bowl MVP, wasn't he at one point?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's
weird.
I think maybe they realize they're like, well, we're not going to re-sign any of you to a second contract anyway. Man. So we might as well try and get you before you go completely crazy, and we'll get the best out of you, and we'll get a good value for you because you're crazy, and then.
I feel like we're missing something too. Might be a couple more in there. We just missed that weren't necessarily big time receivers. Yeah. Wow. All right. Hell of an observation there. How about this story for off the record? You know, the Kelceys are everywhere now. I see them on commercials. They got their own cereal brand now, this kind of thing. And of course, their podcast just sold for, I don't know, $1 bajillion. Now Jason Kelce is getting his own version of a late night talk show.
Yes, I saw.
Yeah, I thought it was a fake headline. I was like, oh, that's a nice little fake. Nope, it's real. The show is called They Call It Late Night with Jason Kelce. And I believe, it's going to basically January 4th. They said starting on January 4th, lasting through the Super Bowl. It will be televised at 1 a.m. on Saturday morning for 5 straight Saturday mornings. And I guess, I mean late night morning, or are we talking about in the morning?
I assume it'd be after Sports Center, right?
Yeah, so it's gonna be late night. Yeah, like 1 a.m.
Yeah,
that's what they mean by morning. So yeah, I believe that's how it's gonna be. Yeah, it's gonna be like 1 a.m. in the morning after. So I probably won't be staying up late to watch it, but that's another. Man, I mean, another revenue source for the Kelce brothers.
They are really trying to make you dislike the Kelceys. They're trying everything in their power.
They're saturating the market.
Oversaturating the market of hey, would you kind of like this Jason Kelce guy? And you're like, yeah, he seems like a cool guy, kind of chill. And then they're like, well, so here's the deal. He is going to be on your TV stop. Like, oh, well, I don't like it that much. I mean, kind of maybe if you every once in a while he popped up, that'd be pretty cool. But like, no, non-stop. He's gonna take jobs from people who could probably do it better than him because he's popular right now, and then we're gonna use all of his goodwill up in the next 6 months to a year. So by the time Travis retires and he's gonna try and do anything, everyone's gonna be like, yeah, we hate you guys now. You guys are always on TV.
But I will say this: you're right about that. They probably will. But then there is also the other train of thought is you want to maximize it now because
I'm not blaming him.
They're gonna forget about you anyway. People will forget about you anyway. You only got so much staying power in your 15 minutes of fame, so you need to capitalize on it now.
I'm not blaming Jason Kelce.
You won't get the money.
I'm not blaming him one bit.
You're blaming the networks and the
yes. I'm blaming the people who think that
ESPN and those people.
I'm blaming ESPN who has this feeling that watching Jason Kelce on every commercial and on every Monday Night Football and then on Sports Center and then on every panel show as well. And then now we also want to see him host a late night show. Like, no, we don't need to see him that much.
It's too much Kelce. That's too much Kelce. No, but like I said, for him, I get it. You got to take it all right now because, like I said, they'll forget about you. As soon as Taylor and Travis break up, then you guys will start to fade into the background. Travis retires. And so you got to get it while you can, man. Cash in while you can. But I will say Travis and Taylor still going strong. Are we counting? How long is this now?
I'm not counting.
Travis and Taylor. I'm not counting. But we're into another football season, and it was on last football season. So
yeah,
right.
No,
we're definitely at a year or close to it.
We're getting close to it. Yeah, I don't know.
Right.
I don't know.
You don't want to have to. You know that they've been.
I don't know what it is. I can tell you they were in the playoffs last year, so it was like a year, but I don't know. I don't care.
You don't want that to occupy any brain space.
No, because I'll remember it for the rest of my life. That'll be the
you'll
thing.
start because once you know, you got to start tracking it. You'll start tracking it even when subconsciously. If I tell you, they've been together for 13 months. You're like 13 months. Then boom.
No, and then 13 months will go. How long have they been together? My brain will go. Well, Rod said 13 months in November, so let's do the math.
Exactly. And like, I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
And then it'll be like 10 years from now, and I'll be like, it's 636 months. Oh.
Seriously. Oh man. Yeah. But like I said, we're past the the publicity stunt phase and stage. People thought that was one of the conspiracies. We're past that now. But the Kelces, that's why we are being oversaturated with the Kelces right now, is because the biggest pop star on the planet is dating a Kelce. That's why the name. Jason's great, but Jason's that right now, him getting a lot of these deals is also a byproduct, or it is I think it is because the Kelce name now, period. It now goes from the sports page to the front page. It transcends from the sports page to the front page now. Now people know, like now my mama know who the Kelce brothers are.
Yeah.
My mama don't need to know who the Kelce brothers are. When my mama knows who the Kelce brothers are, that means officially they're talking about you on, maybe The View and stuff like that. They talk about whatever on other shows that it shouldn't come across my mama's timeline.
No.
Now the Kelce brothers are coming across my mama's timeline. All right, that's that's why you're getting a lot of Kelce, and you're gonna continue to get a lot of Kelce.
No, it's like when your parents are like, "Who's that Postman Malone?"
Yeah.
Like, no.
You're like, "Oh, damn it!
No,
Is it your timeline, huh?"
No,
okay.
Carl Malone's the mailman. Post Malone, it's another guy completely. They're two different people.
Did he retire from the NBA? He's like, yes, but that's not. That's not the same. Yeah, exactly. And that's what's happening with the Kelce brothers now. All right, we come back. We'll get into some. Let's talk about the college football games over the weekend. We got some big college football games, including Texas versus Kentucky. Not a big one, but it's big for Texas. Sark says the biggest game of the year. I think he means every game. The next game is always the biggest game of the year for Texas. We'll get into some college football discussion. Also, this is last year it was the wildest story in college football. Now we have the latest chapter in what was the wildest story in college football in 2023. We'll give you the update there. Also, we'll talk some Texans and talk some NFL news, notes, and nuggets as well. Jam-packed last hour of the show for the week, actually, right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a Freak Flag Feel Good, Fake It Till You Make It. Ric Flair, woo, 512 Football Friday edition of the Rodcast. And that's when my co-host, the Idillionaire Patrick Davis, he plays jams from local bands and artists, very talented human beings that you have a chance to catch live right here in the ATX. Who are we jamming right now, Patrick?
This is Swimming with Bears, and they're playing tonight at the Far Out Lounge.
All right, there you go. So we appreciate Patrick on a 512 Friday. We also appreciate him coming up with the topic for the big fat poll of the day. Patrick, what is the topic for the big fat poll of the day?
Big fat poll of the day today. How many points will Texas score against Kentucky? If you want to throw in your final score predictions, you can do so on X or on the text line 512-447-3776. Right now, 25-34 is winning with 65%. We've also got 35 plus has got 23%, 12% for 15-24, and then one of the Stoops must have voted for 0-14.
Yeah, I mean, if Texas scores in the teens, then yes, we have a problem. But Texas offense should be able to get to the high 20s. I have them scoring 30 on the dot, and now I think I said I had. I believe I had Kentucky at 13 points. So 30-13 is what I'm going. Boom. There you go. That's that would say your offense had its run at one point during the game. If you get to 30 points, and 13 points is still a pretty impressive feat by your defense. And honestly, I don't know how they're going to get to 13. So I'm not saying, they're going to score 13 points on the Texas defense confidently. I'm just, it's hard to get shutouts. At one point, I assume Texas will start rotating guys if they do get a lead in this game. And I think they will get a 2-touchdown, 3-score lead in the game at one point, start rotating some guys. And then maybe that's when Kentucky gets on the board. Maybe they end up getting the return game. Talked about it most times. The return game is really good. So maybe to get a short field out of the return game. Texas special teams has not been bad, has not been a liability. It is not. Actually, this might be the weakest the special teams has been since Jeff Banks has been here, actually. But not that it's bad. Like I said, I don't know if it's not bad. You've had some, subpar plays on special teams, but special teams has been a true game. It's been a game-changing advantage for you since Jeff Banks has been here. Blocks, big returns. You haven't had that this year. They've just, like I said, they've for the most part done their job, but I don't know if you can say you've gained a tactical advantage or some type of advantage from special teams this season.
No, and we were expecting more from Silas Bolden in that world too, and we just hasn't.
Matthew Golden too.
Yeah,
Matthew Golden's a great kickoff return guy.
Just hasn't materialized.
And, you had some called back though. We'll say that had some plays called back because of holding penalties, so that doesn't help. But they could end up making a play on special teams. Is my point, and that could give them a short field too. So I don't know how they're going to get 30, but I got 30-13. They don't cover the spread there because I think the spread is like 20 still. I haven't looked at it recently, but to me, if you're looking at it as a defensive-led team, I'm fine with Texas winning by, 2 touchdowns, 3 scores, whatever. I'm fine with that actually, especially if you have if it's a clean game offensively. You don't have a lot of turnovers. You don't have a lot of penalties, which was the case versus Arkansas. It was a clean game. It wasn't your most efficient game, but it was clean. You didn't have turnovers. You didn't have to get 4 penalties or something like that in that matchup versus Arkansas. All right, so there you go. That is the topic for the big fat poll of the day. We'll get to some other college football matchups coming up here and dive into some of the big matchups coming up this weekend. We got time. We'll get back to some NFL discussion, talk about the Texans a little bit, but. Yeah, I mean, you said Texas scoring 30 points. I'm trying to look at their schedule right now. You go look at the teams that have scored the most points versus this Kentucky team. South Carolina scored 31. Florida scored 48. Seems like the dual threat quarterback scores a lot of points versus them. Because Lagway, if I'm not mistaken, was the quarterback when Florida played him. And Lenora Sellers is the South Carolina quarterback, and he's a dual threat guy that can make some plays. So Texas doesn't have a dual threat quarterback. Dual threat quarterbacks give everybody problems, by the way. That's an issue for everybody. But So if you're looking at the teams that were able to score more than 30 points, that was one of the common denominators. And that is not Quinn. So that's why I'm right at 30. Kind of right at 30. I figured that's what kind of puts those other offenses over the top versus this Kentucky defense. So I'll stay right at 30. But, may have Tennessee's a prolific offense to 28, held, Ole Miss a prolific offense to 17. Georgia's not a prolific offense, but hell, had a 1-point loss to Georgia. So to me, that's where I think ultimately that Kentucky defense, which I got a lot of respect for, I think, that's where they are. That's a sweet spot. 30 is the sweet spot there. All right, let's get to the Horn headlines before we dive into some college football discussion. And we'll also talk about that bizarre story from last season, the most bizarre story from last season, and the latest update and chapter. And we'll also get into the college football realm and some of the big games coming up. But first, let's get educated, updated, and informed with the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn headlines.
All right. Your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the NBA, the Spurs outscored the Jazz by 24 in the second half to get a 126-118 win last night. This is their second win without Wembanyama or Vassell in the lineup, both who they hope return Saturday when they face the Warriors. Tonight, the NBA Cup play resumes with the Rockets taking on the Trailblazers and the Mavericks facing the Nuggets without Luka Doncic, who will miss at least a week with a wrist injury. In Major League Baseball, Shohei Ohtani was named the National League MVP, and Aaron Judge was named the American League MVP. Ohtani led the NL in homers, RBIs, and OPS while adding 59 stolen bases. This is Judge's second MVP, and Ohtani's third, and both votes were unanimous. Texas men's basketball held on to beat Syracuse 70-66 after the Orangemen had made a run down the stretch. Arthur Kaluma paced the team early and finished with 16 points and 10 rebounds, while Trey Johnson had his worst shooting night of the season, but still sunk key free throws down the stretch and finished with 16 as well. They now move on to the finals of the Legends Classic tonight, playing St. Joseph's, who knocked off Texas Tech in the final seconds to advance. Texas women's soccer also plays today, facing number 16 Michigan State in the round of 32 in the NCAA tournament. In college football, Texas faces Kentucky at home tomorrow at 2:30, looking for their 10th win of the season, while elsewhere, number 2 Ohio State takes on number 5 Indiana. Number 9 Ole Miss plays a surging Florida. Number 14 BYU goes against number 21 Arizona State. Number 6 Notre Dame tries to give number 19 Army their first loss. And number 15 Texas A&M heads on the road to play Auburn. And in the NFL, the Browns upset the Steelers in the falling snow last night, 24-19. Nick Chubb had 2 touchdowns as Pittsburgh picked up their third loss of the season. Sunday, Cowboys take on the Commanders in Washington, while the Texans face the Titans in Houston. And that is your Horn headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. There was some news yesterday, and it didn't directly affect Texas, but I think ultimately news like this affects all the big power programs, just because it does indicate kind of a shift in the way that talent is acquired. So there was a decommitment and a flip of the best and the top quarterback in that 2025 class. Best overall prospect in that 2025 class, Bryce Underwood. And he was committed to LSU, flipped to Michigan recently, yesterday. He flipped to Michigan. Now, there's several layers to this story. But the first layer and we brought this up earlier in the show. So he's a Michigan kid, all right? He actually is at a school called Belleville High School. And it's a powerhouse high school in Michigan. They put out a ton of blue chip recruits, and they compete for state titles year after year. As a matter of fact, they had gone to that. I think the program, this young man, Bryce Underwood, had led them to 3 straight title appearances, 3 straight state title appearances in the state's highest classification. So their version of 6A football, whatever it is. So big boy football at the highest level, and he's playing at an elite, prestigious program. So keep that in mind. All right. The young man did flip from LSU to Michigan, goes to Belleville High School there in Michigan. All right. Belleville is a Michigan high school. So I think it's in the suburbs of Detroit, but I could be wrong about that. And Connor Stallions, who has been well known now, infamous for his role in the sign stealing scandal, which ended up leading to an NCAA investigation and suspension of Jim Harbaugh. And we all know how that ended. And then the exodus of talent overall and exodus of coaches from the University of Michigan and Sharon Moore taking over. And since, Connor Stallions has, I guess, been unaffiliated with the program in any official capacity, he has since gone to the high school level to coach. He first went to Mumford. He had a defensive coordinator position at Mumford High School in Detroit. There's a program at a school of about 600 kids. And the program is historically a bad program, like a terrible program, actually. And I want to say he took over because the head coach, he was a defensive coordinator, but he took over the head coaching duties as interim head coach when the head coach had a mild stroke. And he was the acting head coach. Now, they were 1-8, so they didn't have a successful season, but he did start to dabble at the high school level. And then after he left that school, Mumford, he went to Belleville. Yeah, that Belleville. And he went there as a consultant, like an offensive consultant at first, and then immediately became involved in play calling duties upon taking the job. And now they are, at least in their playoff push, when they were having their playoff run this season, the reports were, like I said, I don't know how substantiated these are. The reports were that he had taken over, that he was calling plays for them in the playoffs. He's actually taken over the play calling duties in the playoffs at Belleville, where Bryce Underwood, the number one top overall quarterback and prospect period in the 2025 class, where he plays quarterback. So Connor Stallions knows Bryce Underwood very well. And there are rumors, conspiracy theories out there that Connor Stallions played a role. How big of a role? I don't know. But it is, I think, logical to jump to the conclusion. It's logical to jump to the conclusion that, he's calling the plays for the kid Bryce Underwood in the playoffs. And then he also at this time flips his commitment from LSU to Michigan. And we all know how devoted Connor Stallions is to Michigan. He's a Michigan man through and through. Right, orchestrated the sophisticated sign stealing scandal, wrote a manifesto about his love and devotion and commitment to the program. Seems to me, yeah, I would say Connor Stallions had something to do with it. I don't know how much, but something to do with it. That cannot be a coincidence. There is no damn way that's a coincidence, guys. There's no way.
No, I don't think it's a coincidence. I think Connor Stallions was sent there by probably the same people that sent him to go sign stealing, and he's got some people with deep pockets that are putting him around in certain places.
Special assignments.
It wouldn't surprise me if they, maybe greased a couple wheels to get him the job at that school.
Yeah, how did he get the job? That's another thing too. We need to know that.
Would not surprise me if there was a couple wheels greased. Hey, no, just bring him in as a consultant. He used to work for Michigan. I mean, it's a great program to have a guy come in, and maybe you make a few extra, or maybe we donate something to the program, and then you get.
Yeah.
And then,
facility.
Or no, but I mean, just it's high school football. So, if you just donate, hey, we're just going to donate stuff for new helmets or new pads, something where it's not even this grandiose thing with a name on it, just something that you need and help build your program. And then you let our guy go in there and start talking to your quarterback every single day. And then maybe if you need a middleman between NIL people and people who could offer him some money and what he could get, where LSU's talking to him and they say, well, maybe you can make this amount, and every day Connor can go, well, what did LSU say they were going to give you? Okay, let me go talk to my people.
Well, I would think they want him to stay on the staff because apparently this school is like a powerhouse. Like they produce blue chips year after year.
Well, they can't leave him too long or else everyone will figure out what's happening.
Or it's already out there.
No,
I found it this morning. I found it yesterday, and I was like, "Oh man, this is something people don't know about." Now my timeline is filled with it. It's everywhere now. It's plastered all over the damn place. So he won't be there long. Now he's gone.
No.
He'll go to the next special assignment or task that, like you said, the big money boost, the BMDs, the big money boosters and donors have for him that will help the overall brand of Michigan, help proliferate the brand.
I can't wait for Connor Stallions and his Australian football ways to find the next punter and kicker for Michigan.
Oh,
he's gonna end up on Australia doing something, and they're like,
all these missions he's on. This is amazing. I mean, he's a military man, or he has a military background, right? So he probably likes these special assignments.
Clearly,
but I know that he has a lot of different roles. I'm sure that he has played for the program and a lot of different responsibilities he's taking on for the program. But man, I would love to know that there's somebody like this for Texas. Like whoever that is behind the scenes, I'm sure Texas may have a guy like this. Man, I hope he's as good at his job as Connor Stallions. Connor Stallions gets results. You can say what you want. They did just flip the number one quarterback in the country. They did win a national title. They didn't win it because of the sign stealing, but it definitely helped kind of help them, turn around the program when they needed to. I'm not saying that's the reason. They're like the Astros and the Patriots. That's not why they won, but it definitely helped give them an advantage in the championship run. You can say what you want about him. I don't know about his method, because you're right. He is plastered all over the headlines all the damn time, which I kind of think Connor Stallions likes a little bit.
Oh, really? The guy who had a documentary that he was just talking the whole time? You think maybe he wants a little press? I think he kind of likes it. So I think the person who leaks it is Connor. He's like, hey, you know what? I'm at it again. Devoted to the program. So our boosters and donors know that I'm the guy taking care of the program. It's me. I am the guy. You need to pay me. Give me money to, complete special assignments, whatever they are, the shady stuff behind the scenes. I'll get it done for you. Either way, whether he's the Forrest Gump of shady bagmen or whether he's actually just really effective at getting ish done, I hope your program has a Connor Stallions. I hope Texas has a Connor Stallions somewhere. And I hope he's working as hard. I hope he's as devoted to Texas as Connor Stallions is to Michigan. Has anybody checked the Arch Manning's coaching staff in high school?
Right. The one in New Orleans. Yeah, I don't know. It's a great point. But I'm just saying, throwing it out there, man. I know Texas got people. They got people. Trust me. Texas got people. They got very powerful people, actually. There's dirt that you hear about Texas, and I never hear about it getting out. I could never hear about it getting out. And I wonder, I'm like, when is that dirt getting out? And honestly, sometimes never comes out. And the only way dirt like that never comes out is powerful people working behind the scenes to make sure it doesn't. To grease the palms of the right people, or to put a little bit of pressure on the right people to make sure this does not get out or see the light of day.
I think the Michigan people that have Connor Stallions are just like, what we like about Connor is he'll never rat us out because he wants all the credit.
Yes.
So he'll never rat us out because he doesn't want to admit that we're doing everything, and he's just kind of this idiot in the front. Because if he admits it, then no one will think he did anything. So he just has to everybody like, it was me and me alone.
The front man. Yeah, no, you're right. And you know what? They're fine with that. The people behind the shady people behind the scenes are like, no, we're cool with that. Please. It was all you. You're the long. In today, the anniversary of the JFK assassination. Lone gunman. It's like, put him out there. But he was the lone gunman by himself. Yeah, it was just him.
I heard another theory about that makes a lot of sense, but it's not fun, so everybody hates it apparently.
Oh, well, one thing we do know that there was a conspiracy to assassinate JFK. There's no doubt. Most of America believes that.
So
70% of the country believes there was a conspiracy.
The other theory was that the second gunman was one of the Secret Service members who accidentally fell forward and shot him. And so the conspiracy wasn't to kill JFK. The conspiracy was to cover up that a Secret Service member was the one who shot him. So that was actual conspiracy.
Oh, man.
That's the other one I saw. And then apparently every conspiracy theorist hates it because it's not fun. Like, it makes sense, and there's a lot of stuff that checks out, but everyone's like, no.
So that was the second shooter?
The second shooter was a guy in the car behind him. When the car stopped, he plunged forward. It makes sense, but it's It's I haven't done enough research on any of it to tell you any actual surefire what it could be. So
yeah, but even if that is, say, let's go with that and say that's what happened, but then there still is a conspiracy to cover it up.
Yes.
So either way, you're looking at it. Whether you're talking about prior to take out the president, or you're talking about afterwards to cover up what happened, conspiracy theory. Yeah. There's something shady that went down before. Whether you're talking the magic bullet theory, or we talking about before, it was all types of shady stuff going on. That I will get on the grass.
Brad, I don't know if you know this. Yeah. Anywhere that there is billions of dollars involved, there's shady things happening.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah,
that bee don't come in the picture.
No,
without shadiness, and the U.S. government deals in bees even back then.
Very true. No, it's what's the great slogan? Behind every great fortune is a great crime. You just got to you got to find the crime. Yeah, there's a crime happening. If there's there's billions of dollars being made. Oh, there's a crime.
There's something happening.
You can't make billions without a crime happening.
No.
There's some criminal code being violated to get them billions, but billions do help you cover it up. And if there are billions made, then there's millions to be made off the people making the billions. So I'll look past any violations or any criminality because straight cash, homie. So yes.
So what we will say is Connor Stallions was the second shooter.
Exactly, right. They got him. They got it. So I think you're right. I think whether it is Connor Stallions actually manipulating things or he's the one being manipulated, they're fine with him being the front man. Go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead. Be the front man. Yeah. Get that Netflix special. We're all about that. It was all Connor Stallions, guys. Yeah. And that way, hey, you can't come punish us. He's acting rogue. Yeah. He's no longer affiliated with us at all. There's a rogue Michigan man on his own there doing things. Yeah. I don't think nobody believes that. Does he have an actual job, or is he just? That's how you know he. Somebody tell me how he's actually making a living. He's just hopping around from. Trust me, I have done some research on how to get into coaching. You ain't making a lot of money hopping around with the high school volunteer coaching and being an assistant coach. You ain't making a ton of money.
No.
All right. So how is he getting this? Does Netflix pay him that much money?
No.
Where he ain't got to worry about it for a while. Money. I know, as I'm saying, I agree with you. I'm like, we know how he's making his money. There's a lot of contributions from some LLCs on the table and all kind of stuff. All right. The other part of this story is, before we'll get to break and come back and discuss some college football. The other part of the story is the money, aside from the conversation part, is the money that is being reported to have been offered to flip the young man Bryce Underwood. Now, reportedly, and I saw this from Matt Moscano. He works for ESPN Baton Rouge. He says, my sources tell me, I'm told Michigan got to $12 million for Underwood. Now, the report is that's $12 million over 4 years. Apparently, looking at these things like 4-year contracts.
Yeah.
Now. So $12 million over 4 years. So boom. So they're saying he's getting $3 million per year. The believed offer from LSU was $1.5 million per year. Some people are saying that this is the deal is between 10 to 12 million. So if it's 10 million, then you're getting $2.5 million per year. Easily, you're still over $1 million more than what the alleged reported offer is from LSU. So now there are some folks saying, because with the NIL, it's perception is reality. We have no idea if these numbers are real, but it's just the perception of what is being reported. And if it's perceived that you are losing NIL like negotiations and losing NIL battles because you don't have the money, which is the perception is for LSU right now, that's the problem. The perception is your problem.
Yeah.
It ain't really necessarily that it's actually the reality, but the perception is your problem if it's a bad perception in the NIL world.
No, and now if one guy flips and like 6 other guys flip.
Yes.
Because they know that budget's there for a quarterback. So one guy flips, and so like the guy from USC goes to Colorado, and then another guy goes to USC, and then so it just becomes a domino fall. So we'll see even more people flipping their commitments because you go, well, I was making, because we see again that what I'll bring up, the number 24 team in the country right now lost their starting quarterback because he was making no NIL money. He got paid $3,000 or $30,000 or $3,000 to move, something like that. And
pennies.
No, and so that's the number 24 team in the country right now. And so when you know that there's millions on the line at these other schools, you get why people are flipping when they go, I could make. I remember when Quinn got the $1 million to go to Ohio State, and that was the biggest deal ever.
Yeah, that was a big.
And now you like, I mean, that's just Power 4 now.
Pretty much.
Yeah, if you're gonna compete to try and be a bowl game contender in the Power 4, you're probably playing close to $1 million for your quarterback.
Yes. I agree with that. There's no doubt. Like I said, I was born 25 years too early because that's the highest level of the money. I imagine what the guys at the lower level, they're still getting pretty good change. But yeah, so that's the report. And there's some people that believe that Dave Portnoy, we played the audio earlier. We won't play it now, but we played it earlier this year and we played it earlier in the show of Dave Portnoy essentially saying, and this was before this decommitment, saying that he would offer up $3 million to get Michigan a quarterback. Like he'd be willing to pay himself, be a sugar daddy, and pay the $3 million through an NIL deal with Barstool to get Michigan a quarterback. He since has made a statement, he tweeted out a statement and said he cannot take total credit for it, that it was a collaborative effort that he was just a part of to try to get this young man to flip his commitment and decommit from LSU to Michigan. So he was a part of it. But I think the price tag, it does align with what's being reported, about $3 million a year for that quarterback. And man, CB wanted us to know that in 2027, if he's still there, Bryce Underwood will be the quarterback when Texas plays.
Yeah, but that's a big if, isn't it?
That's a big O these days. Because he might go get another bag somewhere. He go get another $2 million.
Well, I mean, if he loses 3 games next year, well, we're not paying you $3 million to lose 3 games, even though you're a true freshman. And we were barely a bowl eligible team last season.
It's crazy.
We're not paying you to lose.
How does
that
contract work? You gonna put incentives in this thing? Like, is that $3 million I can make up to?
And you can't sign it until you get on campus.
Or do I make a base? Is that my base, or am I making up 2? I need to know. Do I make? You know what I mean? Am I getting a base of $1 million and incentives? I can get $3 million.
That's the problem. Is that's not discussable before you get on campus.
I know, so I got to sign my letter of intent and get there. That's why you don't sign the letter of intent.
Letter of intent. You have to sign and be on campus. You have to be enrolled in school, going to school, and then you can walk on. And then they go, so if you win a national championship, you can make $3 million. You go, whoa!
I thought you said I was making $3 million. Like, no. So your base will end up being like $500,000. Well, your base is $500,000 to $1 million, but incentives, if you get these many yards, many touchdowns, you make All-American. It's like, what? That's
how many games you start, how many games you play.
Yeah, so the key is, oh man, that's brutal. The key would be almost you have to, because you lose your negotiation, you lose your leverage when you enroll in the school.
Yeah, exactly.
Then they get all the leverage back because you almost have to sign whatever terrible deal they offer up at that time.
And I mean, some people may be honest with it. Some people may come out and say, look, we're going to get you this deal, and here it is. Here's a deal. It has nothing to do with your performance, because it's not. I don't think it's supposed to technically go with your performance either.
No, it's not supposed to, but there's a lot of things ain't supposed to. You ain't supposed to be being able to mention NIL even as a recruiting pitch.
Yes.
Right, but
you're not supposed to send Connor Stallions to the school to.
Exactly. You ain't supposed to do a lot of stuff. Is that legal? Yes, it is. Now it is. All right, we come back. We'll talk some more college football. We'll talk about the big games. Here's some nuggets about the big games coming up this weekend in college, and also dive into some of the NFL's big matchups over the weekend. All that and more right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers here. Let me tell you about my friend and dentist, Dr. Greg Eckert. He is fantastic, and so is his team. I owe them a huge debt of gratitude. I initially went there for a routine cleaning and a checkup. Their checkups actually are so thorough. In fact, they found that all of my wisdom teeth were actually growing in sideways. It was doing all types of damage. I was on the verge of a disastrous situation. Thankfully, I had went to Dr. Eckert and his team, and they acted quickly. I was in the best of hands. They made sure that I was educated and informed about the process. More importantly, made sure that I was comfortable with the entire process, got the procedure scheduled, got everything done. I was back at work within a couple of days. And thanks to Dr. Eckert and his team, my dental health and dental hygiene have never been better. And they can do the same for you. Now, hopefully for you, it's not as serious as having all of your wisdom teeth extracted. Hopefully it's something relatively easy and routine. But if it is something serious, you're in great hands. But general dentistry, teeth whitenings, porcelain crowns, dentures, veneers, dental implants, full mouth reconstruction, even root canal therapy, whatever it takes to ensure you're getting the best quality dental care available. That's what Dr. Eckert and his team are all about. And right now is a great time for you to hit up Dr. Eckert and his team. And they can also, because of the technological advances that they have discovered in general dentistry, they can give you a brand new smile right now in just one day. That's right, folks. Permanently secured to your dental implants. You'll get no time spent without teeth. You'll get temporary fixtures until they complete your permanent smile, and then you'll eat again, and obviously you look great and fantastic. Eat freely without pain or discomfort. It's a lifelike permanent solution. So if you've been told your teeth need to be replaced, just call Dr. Eckert today to learn about this revolutionary alternative to dentures. It's a brand new smile in just one day. Sounds too good to be true. It's not. It's just Dr. U. So give them a call today, 512-345-3166. It's a complimentary consultation, which means you got nothing to lose but so much to gain, because a confident smile can truly change your life, and Dr. Eckert wants to change your life for the better. He did the same for me. He can do the same for you. Give them a call, 512-345-3166. And we're getting close to the end of the year, so you want to use those benefits before you lose those benefits. And Dr. Eckert's team can show you exactly how to make them work best for you and your family. Visit dreckert.com, DRUECKERT.com. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Let's talk some college football. Biggest game of the weekend is that Indiana-Ohio State game, number 5 versus number 2. This was weird. I mean, Indiana hadn't played anybody. Their strength of schedule is just pitiful. But they look so good. And I love Kurt Signetti. I love his swagger, everything about him. This is the biggest factor in this game, in my opinion, is can Indiana stop Ohio State's run game? And if they can stop the run game or limit the run game and put Will Howard, we used to call him Will Spill the Pill Howard, but he's been great. He's been more Will the Thrill Howard there at Ohio State. But if they can force him into predictable pass situations where they know he's going to throw the football, Indiana can get after the quarterback. They got at least 8 guys with at least 10 pressures on the team. They got a beast, Mikhail Kamara. He's a freak. He leads the FBS with 53 pressures. They're gonna move him around, and they're gonna try to get him matched up on the weakest link on the Ohio State offensive line. And the reason they got weak links is because they lost their starting left tackle, Josh Simmons, for the season. And then they lost his backup. His backup also, Zen Mikowski, he had a season-ending injury. So they were actually on the third-string left tackle, and then they slid left guard Donovan Jackson over to left tackle to try to stabilize the offensive line. But this young guy, Mikhail Kamara, I think they're going to move him around the front and try to hunt a matchup advantage on that D-line and that on that O-line, and that could wreck things for Ohio State. So Ohio State wants to try to run the football to stay out of third and longs and stay out of situations where they're predictably throwing the football. That's one of the key factors, I think, in that matchup that I'm watching. Indiana also, their secondary does some funky things, man. They do a lot of rotating in the secondary, a lot of disguise in the secondary too. We'll see if they can try to mix up Will Howard. But there's no doubt I'm picking Ohio State. I mean, I just haven't seen Indiana play
10.5 point favorites, Ohio State. I did see that people from Texas getting upset that how you were talking about the key win for Texas being Arkansas and Tennessee, wondering how that's a bad loss. They're wondering how it's a key win for Indiana to beat Michigan by 5 at home when Texas beat Michigan by 19 on the road. You're like, well, it feels like that's a better win for us than it was for you, but again, so that was just one of those ones where you see the inconsistency. And I'm not complaining about it, just the inconsistencies that we've seen, at least in the graphics that they put up for the tournament. That was one of them. They beat Michigan by 5 at home, so that was not even a very good. Davis Warren was the quarterback in that game too.
They considered that a key win for them and not a key win for Texas. They're all over. That committee is all over the place. I'm telling you,
it's just an interesting, because the Arkansas, a 10-point Arkansas win on the road was our key win, not the 19 against Michigan. But it just, I get it's a rivalry in one. I don't know. It was just an interesting.
Oh, they don't know either. They don't know either. That was an interesting point. Yeah, they're giving themselves a lot of. I'm telling you, they're giving themselves a lot of wiggle room so that they can navigate this thing however they want to, and they emphasize whatever data point they want to at the end. And you know what? I'm not against it.
I will tell you this. This is a big thing for Texas to watch as well, for if Indiana does lose, as we're predicting, how far they fall.
Oh, yeah. I agree with that.
That's something Texas fans just keep an eye on, because you could be in that same boat. Now, I don't think we are. Just saying all hypotheticals.
Because your strength of schedule is questionable, just like theirs.
So if you were to lose to A&M or Kentucky, but if you lose to A&M, more likely, that is where the drop could be. And I think that drop would be. So if you look at that Indiana, do they drop them completely out of the playoffs if they lose this game?
Oh, that's from the schedule. It's the weakest among the teams right now in the top 12.
Yeah, I mean, I think their one big win is Illinois, right?
Yep.
Illinois is a 1-point underdog to Rutgers this weekend.
No, you're right.
So Illinois
could make that statement.
Illinois, if they lose to Rutgers and they do a Vegas thing, then they're out of the playoffs as well. I mean, they're not a ranked team anymore either.
Yeah, you're right about that. The other, so we're talking about the Aggies. I'll throw this out there. They got a game at Auburn. I think the Aggies win this game. I don't think they Aggie it up. I think the big factor is the Aggie rush defense. The Aggies are, I think, they're top 20 rush defense in the country. They're a really good rush defense. And I will say this, Auburn's a better rush defense. Auburn right now, rush defense wise, they allow only less than 4 yards per carry. That's a top 10 number and 7th fewest in the country. And, they've done a really good job of being limited to run. And all the Aggies have really offensively for their identity is the run game. If they can turn Marcel Reed into a pocket passing quarterback by shutting down the run, that game could get interesting at Auburn, who's fighting for a bowl game, I believe. They're trying to make a bowl game. So they got something to play for, too. That's not going to be an easy out for the Aggies, man. That's going to be a tough game for at night, by the way. Night game at Auburn, that's going to be a tough game.
No, I'll tell you, that one's going to be tough. Florida Ole Miss is an interesting game to watch. Florida's been playing much better with DJ Lagaway. Ole Miss defense is not always there. Does this become a shootout? And can Florida stay in it enough offensively to make that a shootout? That's another one of those where you could knock off a playoff team. Another one of those teams to knock them further out of the race. And then the other one you watch is that BYU-Arizona State game.
Yeah, it's 2 ranked teams, right? You got a 14 versus 21.
21, but it's that Big 12. What's the power of the Big 12 going in to the playoffs? Do they not get a bye? Do they only take one spot? Do they take 2 spots out of the top 12?
Right now it's looking like one.
It's looking like one right now.
Yeah. But you're right, Arizona State can crash the party. I mean, they really could. They could end up with a little bit of help. If they win the Big 12 and continue on the run, they could end up being a team that surprises everybody in the playoff. Colorado's got I'll say it's a big game, but man, they can't afford to lose to keep their hopes alive. They're 16. They got to play Kansas. Kansas played spoiler to Iowa State and BYU.
Yeah, Colorado
they had 2 big upsets.
Only 3-point favorites in this game. Colorado.
That's gonna be an interesting game. That might end up being a really good game too. Yeah. And then there's that Notre Dame Army game.
Notre Dame's a 14-point favorite. They are at home, so you would expect it to be there. But can Army mess some stuff up? Or because if Army wins, how do you keep them out of the playoffs? They're undefeated. It's a 12-team playoff. How do you keep an undefeated team out?
They're gonna you talk about giving Trump some ammunition to to criticize the playoff. But you're right, they're hoping Army takes care of itself like this. They just get beat. I think they're banking on this.
Notre Dame beats them by 21. We all can go, okay, easy schedule. They walked away with it.
That's what they're hoping. But you're right, if they beat Notre Dame, that's going to cause all types of problems for that committee. There's no doubt about that. All right. There you go. Some college football discussion. We'll come back with Who Said That on the other side. That's when Patrick plays audio from the sports world, sometimes beyond the sports world. And based on the context clues or familiarity of the voice, you have to identify and recall who said that. We'll have that when we come back right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. Some lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the Horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a 512 Friday edition of the Rodcast. That's when my co-host, the Idillionaire Patrick Davis, he plays jams from local bands and artists, very talented human beings that you have a chance to catch live right here in the ATX. Who are we jamming right now, Patrick?
This is Butcher White, and they're playing Saturday at Hanover's.
Butcher White?
Butcher White.
Butcher White. Okay, yeah. See, once again, always intrigued by the origin of these band names, man. It's crazy. Like, what Butcher White? Where'd you get that from? All right. Also, we are thankful for Patrick for coming up with the topic for the Big Fat Poll of the Day, which is posted right now at the Horn ATX on X. Simple question: how many points will Texas score against Kentucky? And right now, 66% of you took the survey, say between 25 and 34. That's the sweet spot. I got them right at 30, as a matter of fact. 22% of you say 35 or more points. That would be a great day offensively for Texas if that is the case against that Kentucky defense, which is one of the better defenses in the country. All right, let's get to Who Said That. That's when Patrick plays pieces of audio from the sports world, sometimes beyond the sports world, and based on the context clues or familiarity of the voice, you have to identify and recall who said that.
I mean, there's no weaknesses on this team. If the eye test, they're as strong as anybody in the country. Tell me one group. I mean, you look at them offensively, a dynamic play caller and a great coach. O-line is completely solid. Running backs, two great ones, probably more, probably four. You know what I mean? But wide receiver room, arguably the best in the country. Dynamic tight ends. Defensively, front four. They lost some guys that were pros, replaced them in the portal with pros. Really deep, really big. I'd say, arguably, again, the best secondary in the country, with it, bar none. And, you put that together, a pretty solid team.
Bar none, best secondary in the country. I agree with them, by the way. I think they're the best secondary in the country. That is Coach Mark Stoops talking about this Texas team, but Texas defense as well. And they don't have a lot of weaknesses. He's right about that. So that'll be on display on Saturday. All right. Thanks, Patrick, for all you do, brother. Great week of shows. You are the real MVP. Thank you to all you guys out there for watching and for listening. Can't thank you enough. Hope everybody has a great weekend. Also, remember, the revolution will not be televised. We'll be talking about it right here on the Rodcast. We love you guys. We mean that. Take care of yourselves, but more importantly, take care of each other. And until next time, next week, hook 'em and peace.